Hey guys, welcome to Fanfic Fanatics. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku married to nine-tailed Ochako, part 1. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is My Kyubi Wife by Stillwell03. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. The early morning sun illuminates the rice paper doors of her bedroom. A pair of fox-like ears twitch atop her head, feeling the heat of the morning sun. She stretches, reaching her arms far above her head, and yawns before slowly opening her eyes, letting them adjust to the light. The tatami sleeping mat she had slept on making her 5 tails stiff from being laid on for the past 10 hours of her rest. She rolls to the side from her back and flicks her tails to get the blood flowing to them again, moving each one independently of the others to fully rid herself of the tiredness. Once the tiredness has totally left her, she slowly gets up from her bed mat. She had never been a fan of the mornings, but the duties of the shrine couldn't wait. Now up and off of the floor, she walks over to the rice paper door covering her closet and opens it. In front of her is the white and red wedding kimono she would wear when she meets her husband. She stares at it longingly, wanting to know the feeling of its fine silk against her skin. Next to it is the shrine maiden's kimono she had worn every day since her 10th birthday. She is the shrine maiden of Kami no Inari, the god of fertility, sake, rice, and of the fox. Her brown tails and their white color point accents flick back and forth as she takes the kimono down from the mannequin she placed it on the evening before, replacing it with the silk pajamas she slept in. 8. Sliding the door to her room open, she exits her room and walks through her traditional Japanese Shinto shrine manner her family has owned for generations. Though modern-day affinities are now inside the home as well. Her father sitting on a floor pillow eating his breakfast and watching the morning programming, her mother finishing plating the food for herself and daughter. Ochako passes a set of white and red samurai armor that her grandfather wore, its kitsune mask staring back at her and his spirit watching over the family from beyond the grave. After her mother hands her the bowl of rice porridge, eggs, and dried kombu, she claps her hands together and thanks her mother for the meal. The morning foxes that call the shrine home all gathered around to watch them that morning. Her mother starting on something to give the foxes to eat, the chirps and yelps of the fox pups playing was the sound of home. The Uraraka family manor, the protectors of Mustafu's shrine to the fox god. 13. Each morning was the same routine. After an early breakfast she would take the food to the foxes and tend it to the bonsai trees. After she would clean the statues of the foxes and the main shrine itself. Afterwards she would make the trip through the torii gates to the beach head. She dreaded that morning walk. The beach was filthy, desecrated by an illegal landfill, and the shrine at the torii gate at the beginning of the beach was in shambles. People had damaged it when they threw the rubbish there in the first place. Though she dreaded the walk, mainly for the wretched smell of the landfill, she harbored some excitement to see if a man of pure heart had tended to the shrine. As is her custom, should any of pure heart tend to the shrine without wish of monetary gain or any sort, she would become the bride of that pure-hearted man. She dreamed of the day she would find him, but more than half a decade had passed since she became the shrine maiden and her hopes were starting to fade. 15. Will someone ever clean this beach? Nobody even comes to the shrine anymore. It used to be so lively when I was little. She says to herself as she walks along the torii gates towards the beach. She felt as if this was a fool's errand, the true definition of insanity. 2. As she gets to the beach, something peculiar catches her eye, a young man seemingly cleaning the beach. He hadn't gotten much done, but she could see the stand where he was cleaning. Is he cleaning the beach? She thinks to herself, watching him wrap chains around an abandoned engine block and start to pull it towards the staircase leading from the beach to the street. She doesn't know how much time has passed as she watches him clean. He goes around the small circle of sand he had cleared, removing more and more trash and loading it into a dumpster on the parking lot above the shore. Her curiosity getting the best of her and captivating her attention as she watches this green-haired man clean the shore. From morning to dusk he is there, though she had to leave to attend to the other tasks revolving around the shrine. When she returned at the end of the day she saw him, lying on his back and breathing heavily. He was out of breath, but the area he had cleaned was far larger than when he had started. Did he work here all day by himself? She wondered. Has anyone tended to the shrine Ochako? Her mother asked. Every day she would ask this question. No, the beach is still a landfill. She lied. Well, not entirely. The shrine had yet to be mended, but the beach was in the process of being cleaned. Don't worry, Ochako. Someday you will find the perfect man for you to wed. Her mother says, rubbing the fox ears on her head. Ochako simply nods before retiring to her room for the rest of the evening. Months of watching this young man clean the beach passed. Every single day he was there. The long weeks of his constant work were paying off. The beach was becoming cleaner and cleaner. He even broke a line all the way from the beach to the shore. It had been years since the beach had seen the land, but now the two were reunited. Ochako wondered why he was doing this. Why clean this entire landfill by himself? These questions remained unanswered as the days went by. Slowly but surely the beach was becoming cleaner and cleaner with each passing day. Ochako found herself wishing to see him each day. She hardly paid attention to the large blonde man she would often see with him encouraging the green-haired young man. She became infatuated with him, her dreams growing these fantasies as time went. One morning, however, just before dawn, she had an epiphany. What if he doesn't tend to the shrine? What if he is doing this for monetary gain? These questions made her blood run cold. That morning when she would see him, she decided to test him. 3. Repeating the same routine she followed every day, she eventually made her way down the stairs from the manor to the beach. She could see something moving on the beach far away as she walked. Soon she found herself sitting where she usually watched him and saw that he was once again tending to the beach. This time he was very close to her, pushing a large broken-down truck off the beach. He took breaks in between moving the vehicle, and during one of these breaks she decided to test his heart. She used her powers to summon the avatar of Inari. The ritual was silent and the fox appeared in the snow in front of her, its face accented with red lashes. 12. She tells the fox to act like it is hurt, and to see if he will aid him. The fox yips at what she says in acknowledgement, causing the young man to look over towards her. She had used her powers to become invisible every time she watched him, but she shook in her wooden sandals when his gaze fell upon her. His emerald eyes show the purity and devotion of a natural-born hero, but the pain of a tragic past. The fox imitates a yelp as it slowly walks out from behind the rock. The green-haired man sees the snow-white fox hobble out from behind a rock, it obviously limping on its front right leg. He pays no mind to the interesting colors on its face and instead tries to coax it to come towards him. The fox stares at him before slowly and cautiously walking forwards. The man with the green hair reaches into a nearby backpack and pulls out a leg of chicken he was going to eat for lunch. The fox sees the food and comes closer, though slowly since it is impeded by an injured forelimb. Once the fox is close enough, the man offers the chicken leg to the fox. It takes it from his hand and turns its back to him. He uses this opportunity to pick up the fox. It doesn't resist as it removes pressure from the injured limb and makes it feel better. He sits the fox in his lap before looking at the paw, the fox continuing to eat the chicken as he does so. He grabs the sleeve of his shirt and rips it off, which causes the fox to turn to him in curiosity. He then grabs two small sticks nearby and tries to reach for the fox's hurt leg. It at first growls at him, causing him to retract his hand rather quickly before speaking.
"It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help you," he says, his voice smooth and soothing to the creature and to Ochako. "I'm going to fix your leg." 33. He reaches for the injured paw and carefully places the two sticks on either side and wraps it with the shirt, creating a makeshift splint. It yelps at the first touch but soon realizes that the split soothes the pain soon after. Once done, he sets it back in the snow carefully before standing back up. The fox looks at him before walking in the direction of the shrine, and he follows. He sees it walk as best it can with the splint on its leg before coming to a moss-covered and damaged statue of a fox. It jumps up onto the statue with the chicken bone in his mouth before dropping it. He then sees it bite something, then lift its head up. In its mouth is a white and red porcelain kitsune. He bows to the fox before opening his hand under its mouth, and the fox drops the charm into his hand. As he takes a moment to look over the charm, he looks away from the white fox. When he looks back, it's gone. That was weird. The boy looked up at the shrine again to realize that he had absolutely no idea such a sacred area was near the beach or even desecrated due to the pollution. I wondered if anyone actually knew this was here. He glanced back down at the charm he obtained from the fox before looking back at the shrine.
I wonder if that fox knew about this and wanted me to help.
In the distance, Ochako watched the boy look at the shrine and ponder for a moment. Her ears began to perk up and her tails began to wag a bit, realizing he's found the shrine and sees how it's in horrid shape. Please let this work. She turns around to see the small fox walk back with a chicken leg bone in its makeshift splint. She kneels down to pet it and congratulates the small creature for its good work as it gnaws away at the bone marrow.
The next day began for Ochako the same as always. Today, however, she was rather curious if the boy had done anything for her shrine to begin jumping out of bed to immediately start her daily shrine maiden duties. When the moment came for her to see the beach and the boy again, she practically ran to the beach hoping to see something. She neared the corner to stop right by the shrine to look upon it and immediately lose her smile. Nothing had been done. Ochako glanced upon the moss and garbage-covered Shinto shrine and began to cry a bit. I thought he was gonna do it. He wasn't to be my husband. Her tears fell as she didn't see the boy that day. No longer having any desire or reason to remain at the beach, Ochako finished what she had to for the shrine and returned home.
When she did, her mother began to ask why she looked so upset, for Ochako to simply say it wasn't important and went up to her room. She glanced at the wedding dress in her closet, feeling as if she'd never find who was worthy in their family traditions. She eventually changed and laid down on the tatami mat, hoping for her dreams would at least do something to brighten her mood.
Little does she know that the green-haired man was away that day. He fully intended to tend to the shrine but would need supplies to do so. While both were away from the shrine, he gathered tools and materials he thought he would need to fix the broken shrine. Paint scrapers to remove the moss, a new stone to carve the fox from, wood to replace the broken wood frame of the torii gate. The next morning he planned on spending the day restoring the broken shrine. He had told his master that there was one last thing he needed to do. He left out the information of the shrine, deciding to tell him that it still was a part of the beach that needed to be cleaned. That evening, not knowing she was thinking of him, he took the tools home with him, planning on restoring it the next morning. Waking long before dawn, he fixes himself something to eat as well as bringing the porcelain kitsune with him. The gift from the white fox was a curiosity, surely something he would tell his friends about if he got into UA. Attaching it to his belt loop, he makes his way from his and his mother's apartment and heads back to Dagoba Beach. The cool sea air and chill of winter causes him to shiver as he walks from the city all the way to the beach. It's quiet, granted not many people were awake at 4 in the morning, even with the workaholic lifestyle of Japan. Nevertheless, despite the cold, he continued walking through the quiet streets of Mustafu. As he approaches the shore, he looks out at all the work he had completed. The pristine white sand was restored to its former beauty, the trash had been entirely disposed of, and for all he knew, his master, All Might, is persecuting the ones who littered and transformed this beach into a landfill. For as he makes his way to the sand, he makes sure to walk the beach, methodically scanning the sand, making sure that all thrash and waste was gone from the beautiful shore. Something that brought a smile to his face was seeing a large leatherback sea turtle laying its eggs in the sand. Crabs making burrows in the tide pools and the birds nipping at the sand trying to eat the seaweed and any unlucky fish that had washed ashore. Life was returning to this once revolting landfill. Now it was time for spirit to return to it as well. Towards the opposite side of the beach stands a damaged torii gate, its red paint bleached by the sun and wood damaged by the constant dumping that had taken place. Near it an Inari statue at the base of the right side, surrounded in discarded cups, plastic and metal cans as well as other filth. The statue itself was covered in moss that hid the chipped and damaged statue. For taking the red paint he had purchased, he begins to repaint the red columns of the torii gate. Using rocks and a nearby ladder, he hadn't disposed of yet, to restore the paint. Once finished, he took some black paint and redrew the kanjis that spanned the top portion of the columns in a vertical fashion. Once done, he sets aside the ladder and empty paint can in the dumpster on the raised parking lot above the beach. Once disposed of, he walks back to the Inari shrine with a garbage bag and collects all the trash that had been thrown all over the place. Lifting the stone statue to get the discarded plastic and metal cans that had been shoved underneath it. Not paying attention to the rising sun behind him, he continued his work cleaning the garbage and taking it away. Bag after bag, he took back up the beach, finally getting the last piece of plastic away from the shrine. Ironically, it had a cartoon fox on the sun-bleached logo. Once all the trash had been taken away, he sought to cleaning the shrine, first taking the decaying wooden pedestal away from it and replacing it with a piece of cherry wood he had purchased from a local store near his home. He stained it the night prior to match the color of dark wood that had been there in its prime and replaced it under the shrine. Taking a plastic paint scraper, he carefully starts scraping the algae and moss from the statue, noticing the cracks and chips in the stone. After getting the moss and algae off the statue, he starts to look over it. It's far too damaged to remain at the shrine, so he sets it down and grabs a block of stone that had come loose from the edge of the rock face above the beach. He takes a metal file and a pick and starts to carve a new statue. Holding up the old one and studying its curves and rounded faces, he slowly chips away at the piece of stone trying to match the old fox statue. Once the rough shape is chipped out of the stone, he starts filing it down to the shape of a fox. Though without much experience in carving, it is a tedious process, taking much time to do so. Ochako once again made her way down the path between the torii gates. She was slightly saddened from the prior day and was entirely expecting him to be gone and the shrine to still be ruined. Today a single red fox follows her as she walks from her home to the beach. Along the path she picks up a piece of garbage and incinerates it with her powers. Why are people such slobs? She thinks to herself as she gets to the beach. Once getting there, she notices that it is completely cleaned. Guess he must have finished, she says to herself before continuing to the last torii gate to see the shrine. When she passes it, she sees something that makes her heart skip a beat. She sees the green-haired man place the new stone statue on the pedestal, having been fully restored. She sees him place a basket full of fruits as an offering to the shrine. He claps his hands together and bows to it as the red fox that had followed her walks up to him and takes a peach off the offering and starts to eat it. What are you doing? She asks. This alerts and staples the man as he quickly falls over and turns to face her out of shock. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you, she apologizes with a bow. I was just trying to clean the shrine. I'm sorry if I disturbed you or anything, he responds. Secretly, Ochako was over the moon in excitement for what he had just done. Her hopes and dreams were coming to a culmination. This man had fulfilled her custom and she now could marry him. You cleaned the shrine? She asks, noticing a new stone statue in the place where the older broken statue once stood. Why, yes, he responds as the fox walks around him pacing in the sand of the shore. Why? She asks, watching the fox bound and playing near him. Well, I felt bad for whichever kami this belonged to. I felt it wasn't right to leave it like this. If it angered them at all, I wanted to make an offering as a way to apologize, he responds, showing her the broken statue in his hand. I tried to carve a new statue from the rock on the beach since this one is eroded and damaged, he explains. Thank you for repairing the shrine, but you didn't have to go as far as to carve a new inari from hand, she says before snapping her fingers. Suddenly another fox appears and jumps up onto the podium that held the shrine. It circles it twice before taking a seat opposite of the statue that was carved before turning to stone, becoming another statue. 2. I'm Izuku Midoriya, by the way. He introduces himself, slightly nervous due to Ochako's height over him and her buxom appearance. 26. My name is Ochako Uraraka, shrine maiden to Kami no Inari. As a gift by the Kami, my family has been bestowed with the line of Kitsune, giving us the powers of the legendary fox. Mine is Kyubi, which gives me its powers, and my 5 tails, if you couldn't guess, she says, Izuku's attention drawn to the 5 fox tails behind her and her alert ears sticking up from the top of her head. 10. They're very pretty, he says. Ochako slightly blushes at this comment. I assume you want some sort of rewards for doing this, she asks, her face turning to a more neutral expression after saying this. No miss, I just did it wanting to do what I thought was right. I didn't want a reward. She looked at him with intrigue after he said this before nodding. Okay, do you mind coming with me to meet my parents? She asks. This caught him off guard. Okay then, he replies. Ochako bows slightly before walking back through the repainted torii gate. 5. She was several inches taller than he was. He stood at 166 centimeters or 5 feet 5 inches. She stood at a towering 188 centimeters or 6 feet 2 inches, a staggering 9 inches taller than him. Suffice to say, he was a little intimidated by both her stature and her beauty. The 5 tails flick back and forth as he follows her through the path,
a kilometer between each of the Torii gates as the two walk through the woods surrounding Mustafu. Towards the end, Izuku notices the gates getting larger as they come to the base of a mountain. The two of them walk through the larger gate and begin their walk up the mountain. The stone stairs carved into the side seemingly untouched by time nor the erosion that happens from hundreds of years of foot traffic. They don't say much as they walk through the forest. The trees have shed their leaves and the forest floor is covered in snow from the night before. As they reach the top of the mountain, Izuku sees a manor fit for the samurai lords of ancient Japan. 34. A walled-in home at the top of the mountain with a several stories tall temple sat at the top. The roofs were an inviting and soft red, flared at the end in the typical Japanese architectural style. The buildings' walls are pristine white as if painted by the snow itself. A frozen rice paddy field in the main garden as well as a walled-in greenhouse with luscious plants and koi fish calling it home. Near the tall temple in the center is a short red-leafed tree. It looks centuries old and growing over a pool of steaming water. A natural hot spring. Izuku thinks to himself seeing the water vapors lift from the surface of the water. Ochako leads him through the front garden and past the spring in the center. He sees foxes bathing and playing in the water and he too reaches down to touch the water's surface. Its warmth being a kindness on a bone-chilling day in the middle of January. Ochako smiles seeing him pet the foxes in the spring before beckoning for him to follow him once more. He stands up and shakes the water from his hand before catching up to her. She opens the door to her family home taking off her shoes as she enters and bowing as she crosses the door. Izuku follows in kind doing the same then closing the door behind him to keep out the cold. Getting inside he is met with a large and buff brown-haired man sitting on a pillow on the floor watching television. Ochako's mother sitting nearby as well. When they see him walk in the door their faces light up in excitement seeing Izuku. "Hello young man, what is your name?" Ochako's mother, another kitsune quirk holder with 3 tails, greets as Izuku walks in the door and closes it behind him. Izuku nervously bows before answering her. I Izuku am Midoriya ma'am. He replies. Ochako's father looked over from the television with interest as to who he was. "Are you here to visit the shrine?" she asks, turning to face him and standing up, her height towering over both him and Ochako. "And no, Uraraka brought me here after fixing the Inari's shrine and Torii gate at Dagoba." He replies now even more nervous in the presence of a woman who is 248 centimeters 8 feet tall. Nervous to the point that his legs are visibly shaking which the vastly taller woman notices. 42. I'm sorry if my height is intimidating Midoriya, I'll sit back down if that makes you more comfortable. She says as she kneels back on the pillow near in front of the kotatsu. 5. So you cleaned the shrine huh? Why'd you do it kid? Ochako's father asks, he much like Ochako's mother, as a very imposing man standing an intimidating 1.83 meters tall, 6.0 feet and very muscular build. Despite looking intimidating, he doesn't bow up nor hold himself in an intimidating manner towards Yuku. 2. Well I just thought it was the right thing to do. I had already leaned the beaches training AA and I didn't expect an award to come my way. I at least got to meet Uraraka, so I find that are rewarding enough. Izuku responds, causing the older man to simply close his eyes and nod to Izuku. 12. Ochako sweetie, could you go get changed? He's finally here, Ochako's mother asks. Yes ma'am, she replies with a bow. Those words were the 3 words she had wanted to hear since she was a little girl. She rushes to her room sliding the rice paper door open so quickly it almost derails from the sliding track. So you chose to clean our family's shrine for the purpose of just finding it to be the right thing to do with no reason to expect a reward, correct? Ochako's mother asks turning from looking at the hallway to face Izuku. That's right, it was training for me to clean the beach and I thought it was only fair to clean the shrine as well. He answers honestly, finding some confidence to do so. Are you a man of tradition Midoriya? Oh, where are my manners? My name is Maruki Uraraka, Ochako's father. Maruki introduces himself to Izuku with a slight bow. Sorta, I at least believe that you should treat sacred places with dignity and not defile them. Izuku responds after returning the bow to Maruki.
I am Tusa Uraraka and our family has been the protectors of the shrine to Kami no Inari for centuries, though our family name has changed through time. Our tradition is for the shrine maiden to wed a man of pure heart who goes out of his way to tend to the shrine for no other goal aside from the pure intent to honor it. As the guardian of the shrine, I know far well when one is being honest before me. My daughter is the shrine maiden and you have dignified the shrine out of your own kindness. I ask that you put this on and meet us outside in front of the shrine to Kami no Inari. Tosa explains before pulling a black groom's yukata from a glass cabinet in the corner of the room. Seeing the traditional groom's attire handed to him, his face flushes with a blush the shade of red that matches the kitsune exactly. This is a joke, right? These things don't just happen, do they? He thinks to himself, trying to rationalize what is happening. Tosa leaves the sitting room and walks towards the kitchen where he sees her retrieve a vase of sake and a ceremonial wedding dish. This is definitely for real. What am I going to do? What if she finds out I'm quirkless? Well, not technically quirkless because All Might has given me one for all and now I'm the newest holder of the quirk which technically makes it mine, and his muttering is interrupted when Tosa ushers him to a room for him to get changed into the yukata. Ochako giddily ripped open the door to her closet and removed the bride's kimono from its mannequin. She uses her quirk to levitate brushes and perfume sprays around as she grooms herself. Brushing the fur in her tails, spraying perfume on herself sparingly, combing her hair and stripping out of the shrine maiden's attire. Her mother soon joins her in the room and helps her with the ceremonial wrapping around her chest, the makeup of a fox and with brushing her hair. She slips on the fine silk kimono her mother wore before her and her grandmother before her. It's soft pristine silk woven by the first woman in her family line on the day of her wedding. It had been cared for by every shrine maiden in her family all the way down to her. Today it is finally her turn to wear the fine silk. It slides on her skin like water falls from the clouds. She fantasized about its softness and couldn't believe the feeling of it against her skin. She pulls up the veil over her head and rests it against her forehead as her mother gently ties the crimson sash around her waist. She stands up and turns to face Tosa, a look of excitement and happiness plastered on her face. 9. Okay, this is definitely real, just calm down, Izuku. Don't freak out. You're just going to get married to a really tall, really beautiful fox girl that you met literally 1 hour ago. Don't freak out. Just don't freak out. Izuku is having a total panic attack at the absurd reality he has found himself in. After donning the black yukata, he does as he was told and walks outside to the main shrine in the center of the manor. Ochako's father playing on a sanshin, a traditional Japanese stringed instrument that you the reader should probably Google so we don't have to split this paragraph to show you a picture. A very old song that Izuku knew very well. An audience of foxes has joined to watch them, the brown, white, and red dog-cat mixed creatures watching with intrigue as Izuku sits on the balls of his feet in front of a shrine that is missing its statue. The song changes when he hears the door to the manor house open and out walks the five-tailed beauty he is about to marry, despite only knowing her for about 69 minutes now. He gawks at her beautiful wedding kimono as she walks across the stone pathway from the house to the main shrine. Fox pups following behind her, bounding and playing together as she walks. 72. She soon joins Izuku by his left side, and smiles to him, a pure and bright smile that for an unearthly reason Izuku felt the devotion to protect at the cost of his life. As they look to each other, a single fluffy red fox walks up to them. Izuku sees it walking towards them and greets the creature, wagging its entire body like an overly excited dog wanting to play. He reaches out and scratches the face of the fox, leaning its head into his hand as he scratches its face and behind the ears. It yips and barks in happiness as it bounds away, running to the Inari shrine without its statue. The fox jumps up on the pedestal, walking around the metal lamp of the shrine before lifting its paw and placing it on a raised stone. It turns to face the soon-to-be newlyweds before shaking its entire body. Golden petals flow from its fur as it turns to stone, finalizing the shrine. Izuku arches an eyebrow seeing this, looking at Maruki who's still playing the sanshin. 2. Why did it turn to stone? Izuku asks, looking at the golden petals on the snow. The kami sees you fit to be the next lord of House Inari and to wed our daughter. Had he not, the foxes would have howled and devoured you. Tosa explains,
Izuku is completely petrified as he watches her pour the wedding bowl full of sake. 31. Lucky me, he says with a nervous laugh. Tosa finishes pouring the sake, which was presumably made there at the shrine, into the ceremonial wedding dish before passing it to Ochako. Izuku watches her sip the clear liquor from the dish. Ochako then swallows the liquid before passing it to Izuku with a slight bow. Not wanting to seem insulting by any means, he returns the gesture and takes the dish from her. Izuku smells nothing from sake in the dish before bringing it to his lips. The alcohol biting his tongue as he drinks the remaining liquid from the glass. Though it had no flavor, the taste of alcohol was still given note in his mouth as a slight burning came to him. He bows like Ochako did when she took the rice wine from her mother before passing the empty bowl back to her. With this, you both are now wed in holy matrimony. May the gods shine down on you both for generations to come. Tosa announces as the audience of foxes start chirping and barking in celebration. We're actually married, but I'm only 15, he shouts in surprise. 11. I'm 16, what's your point? Ochako asks, looking at him and tilting her head to the side. From behind them the number 1 hero All Might walks up through the entrance towards the two. The foxes walk around and greet him as he approaches his currently mental breakdowning successor. 2. Young Midoriya, what's going on here? All Might asks, getting the attention of the 4. 7. I take it, this your father? Tosa asks looking to All Might and Izuku. 24. He's my teacher, Izuku explains trying to collect any semblance of rational thoughts. Meanwhile in his brain, miniature versions of himself are running around screaming as a building labeled, brain, is on fire. 15. Very well then, to answer your question sir, Izuku and our daughter Ochako had just been married as to our shrine's traditions. Another red fox walks up towards them and circles the two newlyweds before gazing up at the large blonde hero. Oh yes, I believe I remember this tradition. Kami no Inari has this tradition if I remember correctly. I take it you are worshippers of the fox god? He asks. The Uraraka family nods in affirmation at this statement. I have a connection with a similar shrine like this one. I was born under a Shinto shrine in Tokyo. All Might says before slapping Izuku on the back in a fatherly manner. Nicely done young man, perhaps I can pull some strings to get your darling wife here into Ua as well. It would be much easier on both your ends if I could. 21. It would be an honor sir. Protecting the people of Japan would also protect the shrine as well. Ochako says excitedly. It won't be too difficult to get you in on recommendation, all I need to do is make a couple phone calls. Ah ha 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 ha, All Might laughs with a bellow. Izuku feels his phone vibrate in his pocket before pulling it from within the yukata and reading the message. Well, this will be interesting to explain to my mother why I'm late for lunch coming home. I guess, you are going to come with me then. I don't really know how this whole marriage thing works. Ochako's tails start to wag excitedly hearing this. 14. Of course, I want to meet my mother-in-law after all, and I'm your wife, silly. I'm going to live with you as well, Ochako says as she stands up and rushes to the house to go collect her things. I was going to tell her that I will handle the duties of the shrine from now on but she ran off. Once you two start a family, you can settle down here at the manor. Lord Inari, be sure to consummate your marriage tonight or on your honeymoon, Tosa says as she stands up from her spot and stretches her legs. 16. Why did you call me Lord Inari? I'm not the kami, Izuku asks. No, but as the husband to the current shrine maiden, you gain the title of Lord of House Inari. Before being shrine protectors our family was a samurai clan that you are now the lord of. Inari is a surname blessed to us by the kami herself, Tosa explains. 1. I hope that when you two visit again, Ochako will be carrying the next in the family line. I leave my daughter to you Lord Inari, take care of her for all of your days. The kami will be watching, Maruki says bowing to Izuku and putting away the instrument. 15. Izuku blushes from what Ochako's parents had said. All Might tells him that he will drive both him and Ochako to their home and that he should go help her pack. He rushes inside after Ochako. As soon as he opens the door he sees her with her things already packed and being carried by one of her tails behind her. She smiles seeing him before walking past and beckoning for him to come as well. He blinks, still trying to understand how fast everything went, but nevertheless he follows her as the two start to walk back down the shrine back to Dagoba. Mom, I'm sorry for getting married without telling you. Izuku thinks to himself as he catches up to his new wife. Ochako quickly grabs his hand and interlaces her fingers with his and leans into him, resting the side of her head on the top of his. Frankly, he wonders how this is comfortable for her neck as they walk down the staircase carved into the face of the mountain. What neither noticed is a bit more weight in Ochako's luggage. A runt of a red fox pup that Ochako had taken special attention to curled up around her clothes and fell asleep as they walked towards her new home. As the trio made their way to the Midoriya residence, Izuku felt an absolute unsettling silence overwhelm him. In a mere 2 hours, he had met the shrine maiden of the Shinto shrine he restored, followed her to her parents, became her husband, and now going to his home to explain to his mother that she officially now has a daughter-in-law. All Might however decided to break the silence and start a conversation. 4. So I should say Mrs. Midoriya now. I'm certain young Midoriya would like to know a little about you. Why don't you tell us some things since you're his wife now? It's his duty to know these things as a man. Izuku blushed as Ochako began thinking to herself what to say. Well, for starters, I like mochi, sweets, green tea, and starry skies. I'm not really a fan of sour or bitter things with nothing I can think of being allergic to. I've been homeschooled most of my life with my father being a former teacher at Tokyo University, so my academic skills might be a little above average. She kept going down a list of personal quips about herself and how she came to be. 8. Some statements in, Izuku began to ask something that's been bugging him for a while. So what does your quirk do exactly? Ochako stopped to begin explaining. Sorry, my quirk Kyubi allows me to do a few things. The first is the tails you see. The second is the ability to make fox fire. This can be rather hot if used on someone or something, but will leave me dehydrated if used too much. I can also turn invisible with my voice still being heard, make myself or other things levitate with a limit of either just myself or 5 metric tons for a while before feeling nausea. I can also make illusions even though they can't do anything really. I can also summon foxes to do my bidding, the best a normal fox can do. Right now I'm not sure how many foxes I can make, but the limit is still there. Oh yeah, I can also heal someone at the cost of my own stamina. 13. That's amazing. So you were without a doubt able to do what an actual fox deity could do. Izuku began to pull a notebook out of nowhere to begin writing down this information in a rough sketch of Ochako. So if she's able to summon foxes, is there a limit to how many, or there's no actual issue there? Not only that, but she could use them as a combination with her illusions. Not only that, but could her ability to levitate things be increased? He kept going to surprise the fox woman to the point she started to comment on it. Does he do this a lot? For the most part, it's not that bad when you get used to it. Ahahaha. Ochako began to laugh along with All Might before Izuku finally stopped to realize what they were talking about. I was thinking out loud again, wasn't I? He asks, causing the two to nod in unison. The three finally arrived at Izuku's and his mother's apartment complex to get out and follow him towards where he lives. As they climbed, All Might was having a bit of difficulty getting up the stairs due to his size being taller than the stairwell itself. Izuku had attempted to help Ochako carry some of her stuff with her happily agreeing. Young Midoriya, is there perhaps an elevator? I'm a bit too tall for the stairs. All Might asks, causing both the newlyweds to look at him, bent forward so his head and neck are not dragging on the ceiling. Yes, on the first floor and around the left of the entrance. My mom's apartment is on the 4H floor. Izuku replies. All Might thanks him before walking towards the entrance. The newlyweds reached the door that said, Midoriya, on the nameplate. Izuku began to knock on it as they waited for All Might to return. 4. Coming. The door opened to a woman of a shorter petite figure with similar features as Izuku. Hi sweetie, why are you so late coming home? I thought you said you were going to be back at lunch by the latest. Izuku held the back of his head before answering. Well, some things happened and he trailed off with Inko looking beside him to see Ochako with a smile on her face. I see, you've found yourself a girlfriend. I'm so proud of you Izuku. 5. I'm his wife. Ochako corrects. There was a dead silence in the hallway with Inko immediately thinking this was some kind of joke. "Oh Izuku, you didn't tell me your new girlfriend was a jokester." 9. Inko kept laughing before Izuku spoke up. Actually, she's right. I kinda got married a little while ago. That's why I'm so late." 3. Silence came back to the halls with the mother now realizing the gravity of the situation and seeing the bags. "My son is married." The sound of her shout was so loud, some people that were passing by from the streets overheard and stopped dead in their tracks looking at the direction the shout came from. "Izuku, how did this happen? Why didn't you tell me sooner you were getting married? I would have at least helped with the ceremony if you did." 5. Well, it was kinda an on-the-spot kinda thing so I couldn't exactly tell you. "A shotgun marriage. Please tell me it isn't because you've gotten her pregnant. As much as I want grandkids you need to be older to be able to take care of a baby responsibly." 10. He didn't. Yet, Ochako said the last bit with some satisfaction for both Midoriyas to become dead silent. 19. I am here, with bags. All Might came to the door for Inko's eyes to pop out of her skull now. Izuku notices a fair amount of drywall in his hair and some glass shards on his arm. 14. All Might. Why is the number 1 pro hero here? Inko's shouts started to break the sound barrier from the amount of shock for Ochako to hold her ears down in pain. "Mom, maybe we should talk about this inside. If not, you might have the police called on us from how much you're shouting. I promise we'll explain everything inside." All Might. Why are you covered in plaster? Ochako asks, seeing the white powdery drywall in the blonde's hair and on his jacket. The door to the front was a little lower than I was expecting and I kinda walked through it. Izuku face palms when he hears this before pointing at the glass on his arm. Vending machines and I have always been mortal enemies. 79. Inko agreed as they walked inside. Once she calmed down, Izuku explained everything to his mother of what happened. He goes into how it was apparently some form of custom in Ochako's family as shrine maidens to wed whoever cleans the Shinto shrine they worship without expectancy of monetary gain, with Izuku doing it without realizing this. He then tells how he was married not long after being brought to her family's house and how All Might brought them back. "But why does All Might seem to know you? He's been kinda training me for a while." To say Inko was blown back was an understatement. Not only was the number 1 hero helping Izuku, but she was now dealing with her son being married at the age of 15. Okay, so exactly how old is Ochako first off? Trying to find some closure in this, Inko asks this, just making sure this wasn't a generation gap marriage where the husband and wife are a good decade between each other. 2. I'm 16 Mrs. Midoriya. If I were to go to a normal school, I'd be in my first year in high school. My parents didn't start my schooling till I was 7 due to my father still being a professor in Tokyo. 1. So your father was a professor. Interesting. What did he teach? Nuclear engineering and nuclear physics. He's actually the head of the dissertation board, the department that concludes PhD candidate students on their final thesis. He still teaches, but due to a car accident that happened a few years ago, he mostly does pre-recorded lectures. 6. Oh my. Is he all right? Yes, but he just has difficulty walking and standing for long periods of time. The crash fused C4 and 5 in his spine, and even my mother's and my own healing couldn't repair the nerve damage. He can still do things like a normal person though, but he just needs to avoid long-term things that require him on his feet during most of it. 11. Well, I hope he's at least happy with his daughter being married. Very. Both him and my mom couldn't be happier. Her tail started to wag at this, with All Might starting to get up to leave. I hate to cut this short, but I really must be going. Young Uraraka, perhaps Dr. Chio Shuzenji may be able to fix the fused vertebrae in your father's spine. Not only is her healing quirk the current most powerful known one in Japan, she's also one of the world's best surgeons, having personally repaired my hip and legs when some villain dropped a literal building on me. Ochako's face lit up finding this out before nodding. 12. I'll keep that in mind, sir. The pro left the house to head towards UA for a quick meeting he had to do with the principal. As he did, Inko glanced at Ochako and smiled. Should I prepare the guest bed for you, dear? 1. Ochako shook her head before grabbing Izuku's chest and pushing it into her cleavage. I'll stay in Izuku's room. We're husband and wife after all. Izuku went pale as she walked towards the room labeled his to open it. As she did, she was rather impressed and a little creeped out by how much All Might memorabilia there was in the room as a whole. She ignored this though to open her bag. 4. Do you need any help unpacking? Izuku walked in to see her opening her bags to shake her head no. I should manage with just myself. She kept pulling things out and levitating them into Izuku's dresser, before going to her larger bag. She only stopped when a small bump started to move inside it. When it got to the opening, it revealed a small fox pup holding its tongue out in a happy manner. 1:38. Kitsu. Ochako quickly grabbed the pup to hold it like a baby in her arms. Who's this little guy? Izuku asks, scratching the cheek of the small fox. This is Kitsu. He's a fox pup that I took care of some time back when I found him in the woods. His mother abandoned him since he's the runt of the litter, so I kinda take care of him. The small fox pup gets up and on the bed before looking at Izuku and sitting down calmly. He's also very well tamed for a fox. Think of him more like a loyal dog and lazy cat above everything else. Though you are a little troublemaker, yes you are. Yes you are, Ochako says, rubbing the face of the tiny fox and having it yip in excitement. Kitsu started to move towards the floor before walking out into the living room with a scream being heard. Why is a fox in here? 2. That's Kitsu. He's my pet and he snuck into my bag when we were leaving the manor apparently. You don't have to worry about him since he's still a baby, but he is a bit of a troublemaker when he gets bored. Ochako says as she rushes into the living room to find Inko standing on the couch looking at the baby fox that is merely just staring at her from on top of the coffee table. 1. Oh, he just startled me is all. Does he need any toys or special food? Inko asks. Meanwhile, Izuku checks his phone after feeling it buzz twice from a text message. 4. All Might. Young Midoriya, seeing as there is still 2 weeks before the first day at UA. I have decided to pull some strings regarding your marriage. 3. Izuku. What do you have in mind? Ochako is currently explaining to my mom why one of the foxes from the temple is in the house. All Might. Did it sneak in with her belongings? 25. Izuku. Yes it did. All Might. Anyways, I have managed to procure 2 recommendation forms for both you and your wife to enter Class 1A's Hero course which I will fill out today. I already know the information regarding your quirk but I will need young Urasari, Mrs. Midoriya's birthdate and information on her quirk as well. Yours was already on the letter of admission you sent to be able to take the exam in the first place. Principal Nezu just scanned that over to the recommendation form. 4. Izuku. That's amazing. Thank you All Might. All Might. It's no matter young Midoriya. Now the second thing I have managed to do is send you and your wife on a honeymoon to a mountain spa and hot spring resort in the northern part of the island. The entire place, aside from the workers and staff, will be for the 2 of you. It is a resort in the mountains of Hokkaido. It's the Tokuchigawa Onsen in Otofuku. You and your wife leave for the resort on Saturday this week. I will be by later in my civilian form to drop off the tickets to go. 1. Izuku. Thank you. All Might. How did you stutter over text? Seriously, you need to loosen up my boy. You look like you're being held at gunpoint the majority of the time. This will be a week-long trip to Tokuchigawa and you can relax and unwind with your wife before the training at UA begins. I'll see you later this evening. 34. Izuku. See you later, All Might, and thank you again. All Might. It's no matter, I don't use a fraction of the amount of money they give me for being the #1 hero. Most of it I donate to charity and even then I haven't put a dent on it. There's no need to thank me, my boy, now I have lessons to plan. I'll see you later today. Goodbye. 6. Izuku's face turns to a color he hasn't ever seen before as he thinks of going to a hot spring with his new wife for their honeymoon. He covers his face in his arms to hide his embarrassment as Ochako comes back into the room. She sees him super flustered and chalks it up to him being embarrassed about all his All Might merch. She sits on the bed next to him and has him lay down beside her. Instantly she feels that the bed is far too small for the both of them, let alone herself. Her tails were squished against the wall and even when shifting to where she is laying on top of Izuku, who is very uncomfortable at the moment, she still finds it very uncomfortable for her tails. 6. This isn't going to work, she says as she sits up and flicks her tails around and stretches them. My tails are too cramped against the bed and wall. Does the guest room have a bigger bed for both of us? She asks Izuku to shake his head no in response. I don't think it is, we can go check if you want. Yes, she replies. The two exit his room and secretly Izuku is thankful that they are since he no longer has to be embarrassed by his collection of All Might stuff. Oh, I thought you were getting set up in Izuku's room. Are you hungry? Inko asks as the two walk downstairs from Izuku's room to the living room. 1. And no ma'am. It's just the bed is a bit too small for us both to sleep on since my tails take up a lot of room. Ochako says sheepishly, slightly embarrassed about her height which Izuku found interesting. Oh no matter then, since Hisashi and I got a divorce I've been staying in a single twin bed in one of the guest rooms. The master bedroom doesn't have any bedding in there so I'll go ahead and make the bed for you too. Izuku, I may need help moving some furniture in there as well, Inko says with Ochako thanking her with a bow. 24. Thank you Inko, as for moving the furniture I can handle that very easily. Ochako says. Ochako, it wouldn't be polite of us to have you move such heavy things around. Izuku and I can handle it. He is a strong young man after all. Inko protests. Who said I was using my hands? My quirk lets me float things with my mind so it's as simple as snapping my fingers. Ochako says as she snaps her fingers on her right hand. Suddenly, all the couches, tables and chairs in the living room are illuminated in a pink hue then lifted a couple feet off the ground. 4. Oh, well then go right ahead. I will tend to the sheets and bedding in that case, Inko says as she gets up and heads to the master bedroom. So, about the All Might merchandise, Ochako says turning to Izuku. I know, it's a lot, he says looking down slightly. No, it's not that, you can put some stuff around our room but, can you do maybe a quarter of the amount you have in your room? I don't exactly feel comfortable with him staring at me from every angle in the room. Ochako requests. 60. I didn't know it was making you feel uncomfortable. I'm sorry, he quickly apologizes. This causes her to smile before she hugs him. It's okay Izuku, between you and me, I have more Fox-related stuff in my old room than you do All Might merch. She says with a smile before the two head upstairs to help Inko with the master bedroom. 5. Inko exits the room after making the bed and placing pillows and a duvet on the end of the bed. Leaving the door open, she watches as Ochako snaps her fingers and levitates the desk, dresser, bedside cabinet as well as television and computer from Izuku's old room to the current one. Once they have finished placing the furniture in spots they both agreed to, Izuku took up the tedious task of bringing a small amount of All Might merchandise into their new room and placing them in ways that wouldn't have the inanimate object version of his successor staring at them as they slept. No, the All Might curtains didn't go up in the room. Instead a couple figures, Funko Pops as well as clothes, mouse pad and computer were in their new room. Then it was Ochako's turn. Kitsu watched as she laid out many paintings, ceramic figures and charms, and other knick-knack foxes around in similar places to the All Mights. Once finished, Ochako slumps down on the bed, her tails going limp and laying on her legs from the long day that she had had. Too tired, Izuku asks her. She looks over at him and nods slowly. We did walk a lot today, it would probably be a good idea to go take a bath, Izuku says stroking his hand through the fluffy fur on Kitsu who was laying on Ochako's back just above her tails. 1. It is our wedding night Izuku, maybe we should consummate our marriage, she asks. This causes his face to go bright red hearing this. 13. I. He stutters not being able to answer her. She finds his innocent and easily embarrassed side cute before she sits up, the small fox being lifted from the small of her back by one of her tails and set in front of the mass of pillows on the large bed. 1. Let's go bathe first, and you're coming with me. A slight nosebleed escapes Izuku's nose as she drags him to the bathroom in the master bedroom. Ochako hums to herself as she lathers soap in Izuku's fluffy hair, having not a care in the world and as naked as the day she was born. Poor Izuku is holding a towel over his private parts and a rag to his nose to stop it from bleeding due to impure thoughts. She scrubs the soap into his hair then rubs more across his back and along his arms and body. admiring the muscle definition that his training had given him as she traces her fingers along the muscles on his back and arms. She smiles seeing his reaction to her, and decides to tease him even more. Pressing her breasts against his back immediately causes him to hitch forwards out of shock in what she's doing. 16. Try not to move so much, Izuku. You wouldn't want your wife to slip and hurt herself now, would you? She teases in a tone that feigns sadness, earning herself a panicked reaction from her green-haired husband. No. Of course not. Why, you just surprised me. Smirking mischievously at the sound of his timid tone, Ochako hums a gentle laughter and continues washing Izuku's back with her soap-covered breasts. She enjoys the feeling of his strong muscles against her sensitive skin and breathes heavily into his ear to excite him. 18. How does your back feel, Izuku? Am I being gentle enough? Ochako coos in a breathy tone, biting her bottom lip. It feel very nice. Izuku stammers, keeping his focus on the mirror parallel to him, allowing him to view Ochako's beauty even within the steamy room. Go rinse off and then it's your turn to clean me, she tells him. Sheepishly he stands up and walks to the shower head before rinsing the water from his hair, back and body. Ochako stands up as well before taking a seat on the stool that he was sitting on prior. Izuku now finds himself in a different predicament. Instead of having an extremely attractive and tall woman washing him, he is currently washing her. Her giant breasts are visible even from behind her, and Izuku tries to avert his gaze from even looking at the vast mounds of flesh blessed by Inari herself. Timidly, he rubs the sponge on her back and scrubs the shampoo into her hair. 12. You really should watch what you're doing. You could miss and grab something you aren't supposed to. Ochako kept snickering as Izuku felt like his heart was going to burst out of his chest in embarrassment. 18. He continued to wash her, acknowledging the slenderness of her body and the firm yet softness of the fox girl's arms. Though she was someone that lived in seclusion from what Izuku could tell, Ochako was without a doubt a beauty that the world couldn't begin to comprehend from a frontal or first-hand point of view. Why, your skin is really smooth. Izuku stuttered this out as Ochako hummed in happiness. Thanks, the onsen at my home does wonders for your skin. I hope you aren't that worried about touching me. You'll do much more of that later tonight. A giggle came out of Ochako while Izuku couldn't hold back the blood rushing to his head anymore. He started to spiral around, with Ochako realizing she might have gone a little too far with her taunting. I think I can handle the rest. Why don't you sit in the tub and I'll be along after I rinse off? 4. Izuku stumbles up and heads into the bath while Ochako gets up and heads over to the shower head. She starts rinsing the suds off her before looking at Izuku, who was holding his face in embarrassment. She finishes up to walk towards the bath and sits opposite Izuku. He looks up and goes completely red seeing Ochako's H-cup breasts float up in the water. He turns away, unable to look her in the face at all. 2. So Izuku, what can you tell me about yourself? I'm sorry, Izuku questioned as Ochako explained. I just met you today, but I don't know a thing about you other than what you've shown me and what I've guessed. Do you mind telling me some things, like what your hobbies are, your quirk, also maybe about a few friends? The last bit made Izuku feel a bit sad, hearing the last bit about friends, since he didn't exactly have any. Well, I keep track of heroes, if you haven't gauged that, with my collection of All Might stuff. I also have some hobbies of craftsmanship. The shrine though was one of my biggest tasks yet. But for any friends and my quirk. I don't have any friends. Ochako looked at Izuku confused as he continued to explain. When I was little, I didn't get a quirk, and only recently did I get one. Because of this, many people picked on me and didn't even give me the time of day. You're essentially both my wife and first true friend. This statement causes Ochako to fall silent. She had her suspicions that his issues with confidence just wasn't stemming from her, but now hearing he was bullied broke her heart. Oh, Ochako, he asks, trying to break the silence. Ochako stands up from the bath before turning around and sitting in his lap. This action causes his face to turn even more red than before, because the full front of her body is on display for his eyes. She wraps her legs behind him and hugs him into her. Aside from mentally screaming to not get an erection, Izuku returns the gesture and places his arms around her waist. 12. Nobody will ever bully you again, Izuku. Never again, you'll always have me by your side. She says, tightening the hug. She feels him turn his head into hers and his hands pet the tails that are under the water of the bath. Once again she hums in content, feeling his embrace and his hands run through the soft, yet wet, fur of her tails. She feels something press against her and loosens the hug slightly so she can look at Izuku, giving him a suggestive look, knowing what is pressing against her stomach. She begins to lean forwards to kiss him. He does the same as the world around the fox, and her groom begins to slow around them. They press their foreheads together before starting to close the gap between their lips, but are unfortunately interrupted. 15. Izuku. Ochako. We have company. Izuku's mother calls from the hallway, interrupting the two from their first kiss. They stare at each other, being slightly startled from Inko yelling for their attention. Ochako sighs before giving Izuku a peck on the cheek and standing up from the spot on his lap. 7. We could have had our first kiss right there. Oh well. Let's go see who has come over, shall we, Izuku? Oh, and I'll deal with your little problem later, she says, reaching under the water and grazing the tips of her index and middle finger on his manhood. 8. After getting dried off and into some clothes she has had tailor-made due to her tails, she helps Izuku dry off his fluffy hair. Once the two are dressed, they exit their bedroom and walk downstairs to the living room. One of the people in Izuku's home causes his blood to run cold upon seeing him. This change in demeanor is noticed by Ochako, who takes the lead, walking into the living room with Izuku behind her and out of reach of Katsuki Bakugo. A woman taller than Inko is sitting on the couch across from her, talking with the green-haired woman. Inko has little Kitsu in her lap and is stroking his fur gently as she listens to the other woman talk about her day. When the two see Ochako and Izuku enter the room, their attention shifts from their conversation to the 6-feet-tall fox woman who towers over Katsuki. 1. Oh, who is this beautiful woman? She's so tall and gorgeous. The blonde-haired woman greets as Ochako walks into the room with Izuku. 2. Thank you. My name is Ochako Midoriya, Izuku's wife. She greets with a bow. The older woman's eyes go wide as Katsuki spits out the water he was drinking to stare at her in absolute befuddlement. Staring between Izuku, who is standing timidly beside her, and the Amazonian of a woman holding his hand. He points between Izuku and Ochako with eyes the size of dinner plates. 6. How the hell does a quirkless nerd like you get a literal fox as a wife? How much did he pay you? He shouts, waking the young fox pup in Inko's lap, causing it to whimper in fear. Without a word, Ochako snaps her fingers, causing Katsuki's mouth to be forcibly clamped shut. 14. Shout again, and you will find out just how many bones will break from a 4-story plummet to the ground, she says in a deadly calm voice, even startling Izuku. Indoor voice or you will be thrown outdoors, she says, releasing the grip on his mouth from her telekinesis. Like hell, I'm going to take orders from Sam. He instantly starts shouting again before is cut off once more by Ochako. Remaining silent, she snaps her fingers and opens the door before she floats Katsuki outside, grabs him by the face, then throws him off the balcony. 27. I like her. I'm sorry for my shit bag of a son. My name is Mitsuki, she introduces herself. 19. Manners would do him well worthwhile. Judging by his reaction to seeing me, I'm going to assume that he is the one who has been bullying my husband. I can assure you that he will be dealt with if he so much as looks at Izuku wrong. If he hurts him, he will quickly find out what it's like to have his head screwed on backwards. This said with all the lightness in her tone as she had spoken prior, which slightly unnerves all three of them in the room. 3. I like this girl, Mitsuki says with a smile. Ochako bows slightly to her before picking up Izuku like a cat and bringing him over to a couch opposite Inko and sitting him in her lap. Resting her hands around his abs and using this opportunity to feel up his toned core. 15. Have you two gotten the news from Ua? Mitsuki asks. No, actually we have not, Inko says, turning to face her friend. Ua is becoming a boarding school starting this spring semester. They sent out a notice to all entrance examines informing us of the dorm system. Just as a notice, so in case you are accepted you have time to prepare for the transition to the dorms on campus, Mitsuki explains. 3. Well, this will certainly be interesting. Izuku and Ochako are on recommendation, but I'm not sure what the recommended students' exam will be like for them, Inko replies, turning to face the two of them. We're actually going on our honeymoon next week, leaving on Saturday. My mentor is a pro hero and offered to send us to Tokuchigawa Onsen in Otofu for the week. Izuku says, showing Ochako the text from All Might. Oh, so you're newlyweds. When did you get married? Mitsuki asks, turning her full attention to the green-haired man and his fox wife. This morning actually. We held a traditional Japanese wedding at the Inari Shrine Manor in Mustafu. Following our traditions, we were married because of his pure heart to tend to our shrine and the beach for the sole purpose of repairing it and expecting no reward. It has been our custom for hundreds of years, and now Izuku is lord of House Inari. Ochako explains, running her fingers through his curly hair. This morning. How long have you two known each other? Mitsuki says, completely shocked. I've watched him clean the beach for nearly the past year, but we've only known each other's names since this morning. So about 5 hours now. Ochako answers. We haven't kissed yet, but we have bathed together. This response causes Izuku's face to turn red and for Mitsuki to start laughing. Oh, you certainly did things out of order. I'd suggest that before you two do on your honeymoon, go on a few dates with each other and make out a few times. You certainly have the looks to be a supermodel and have bigger breasts than I do, and I'm an EE. Miduski compliments. 14. You don't appear that way, but it could just be the jacket. I'm an H and my mother says I'll probably top out at an I or even J. As for my height, since I'm a Kyubi quirk holder, I'm going to be much taller than most people. My own mother stands at 248 centimeters tall and I'm only 188, but she says I could top out at a full 3 meters. This causes both Inko and Mitsuki's jaws to drop. Ochako merely smiles at the two older women. 22. Are you two even physically compatible? Izuku will be a mouse compared to you. Mitsuki declares in shock. We did bathe together, and as much as I can surmise, he is 35 centimeters where it counts. 67. Can we not talk about this when me and my mom are in the same room? Izuku shouts in total embarrassment. 16. I'm sorry, Izuku. I didn't mean to embarrass you. Ochako says, hugging him tightly from behind, and, due to their height difference on the recliner they're sitting on, Ochako's breasts are on both sides of his head and slightly squishing his face. 2. Well, I think you have the best seat in the house, Izuku. Alright then, I'll be seeing you later, Inko. I just dropped by to give you some tamagoyaki we had made and to tell you of the new dorm system. I'm going to go get Katsuki from the dumpster that Ochako threw him into. It was also very nice to meet you, Ochako. I hope you and Izuku get along very well together. 4. We will, and it was nice meeting you as well. Ochako smiles at Mitsuki as she leaves. Before she does, however, she stops to say one final thing. Oh, and Izuku, make sure you treat your wife nicely on your honeymoon. And by nicely, I mean take her around the world. She winks at this for Izuku to lose all ability to go back to his normal color and remain beet red to make everyone laugh a bit. 1. She seemed very nice. Mitsuki may come off very aggressive on the outside, but she's a very good person when you get to know her. Katsuki, on the other hand, let's just say him being born to a rage mom helps keep him in line somewhat. Inko says this for them to hear outside a rather clear argument between Mitsuki and Bakugo about him being nicer to Izuku or facing what he just did on a regular basis. Well, dinner should be about ready. Why don't we sit down and enjoy something to eat? Inko starts to get up with Kitsu following her like a loyal dog. Izuku and Ochako get up as well to get towards the table for the green-haired mother to place a hot pot of stew in the center. She passed around some bowls along with having a small metal one from the kitchen given to Kitsu for him to enjoy as well. After a prayer, the four started eating and making some small talk among each other. Most of it was about Inko embarrassing Izuku with his childhood and how he idolized All Might to make Ochako laugh a bit at how much of a diehard fan he was of the pro. Ochako told a few stories of her family as well, along with one about how Kitsu came to be her baby in a way. Inko enjoyed hearing this before hearing the said fox burp a bit and give a dog-like smile to everyone. Once they finished, Inko started to clean up with Ochako and Izuku helping out before calling it a night. Kitsu decided to follow Ochako into hers and Izuku's room and find a spot to sleep on the chair to the computer. He even found his own stuffed animal Ochako made for him to wrap around and start heading to sleep. Guess he's comfortable. Kitsu's always been one to find a comfy spot. Just wait, he'll enter into our bed during the night and find his way between us.
Ochako laughed a bit at her little fox's way to do things with Izuku starting to lay down. Before he could though, Ochako began to get an idea going in her head. Izuku. He looked up to see Ochako begin pulling the robe she had on down a bit to reveal she didn't have a bra on and barely covered her chest. This forced Izuku to go beet red as she slowly moved towards the bed and placed her legs on the outside of Izuku's to hold him under her. Wait, I'm not prepared for this. 11. It's okay Izuku, I told you I'd help with your friend, didn't I? She started to lean down towards Izuku's head with his mind now overheating from everything that was happening. Her lips slowly pressed onto his for their softness to be felt. The taste of mint and strawberries suddenly came into his mouth with Ochako tasting green tea in hers. As she pulled away, Izuku was barely able to comprehend what just happened before speaking up. We should wait. We barely know each other and I don't feel right doing this with you yet. Why though? Is it the size? My body? The tails? Ochako was a little worried she was unattractive in Izuku's eyes as he corrected her. It's none of those. To be completely honest, I think you're out of my league to even be someone I know, let alone marry. Also, we've just met today and everything's happening a little fast. I do think you're amazing and that we could go to tea that one day, but do you mind if we wait till the honeymoon for this? I feel like it isn't fair for you if we go this far on the first night. 10. Ochako heard this and understood. She was a little nervous all things considered as well, but she also didn't want to make it seem like she wasn't attracted to Izuku by any means. The fact he respected her enough to not consummate their marriage the first day they met and married made her a little happy inside. Okay, but this is gonna be the only thing I get tonight in return. She presses her lips on Izuku's again for him to freeze a moment before melting into the kiss and enjoying it. They started to lay down after to begin to relax and fall asleep. As they laid in the bed, Izuku thought about just how hectic the day was. Meeting Ochako, marrying her, and even the fact they almost did it the night of all this made him baffled. This whole thing is gonna need some getting used to. Ochako started to wrap around him to make the OFA user smile a bit. In all honesty though, today could have ended worse. I could have died at the hands of foxes. Izuku silently laughed at himself as Ochako curled up closer to him. The thought of a married life began to pass through Izuku's mind to make him smile. Good night Ochako. 2. Good night Izuku. The two held onto one another as they drifted asleep for the night. The days passed for Izuku and Ochako to get somewhat used to living with one another for most of the awkwardness to drift off. The first morning however was by far the worst since Izuku in a half-asleep aspect forgot he was married the day before to mentally panic that a gorgeous woman was wrapped around him with a fox sleeping on the top of his head. This fear quickly stopped however when he remembered the day before. Though his unease wasn't any better since Ochako shoved his head into her chest as if he was a body pillow after. The duo did have some other unease during this, predominantly Izuku being teased regularly by his fox wife. She would regularly cling to him and wrap around him and give small bites on his neck to make the OFA user's head produce steam. 7. Even though there were times Izuku wanted to bash his head into a wall due to the unease he had, there were cute times as well. Kitsu seemed to bond with him very well to the point he'd regularly find chances to sleep on Izuku's head. He poised it up to the possibility that the small fox believed Izuku's hair was similar to that of grass to not mind it as much. He also learned of how well off Ochako was with handling simple things such as cooking and cleaning for her to explain that her mother was the one that taught her how to do some of the most simple things that a wife should do in her opinion. He felt embarrassed when she'd stitch up a tear in one of Izuku's favorite jackets, but was happy that she knew how to fix it and make it look next to the same as before it was torn. However, the one part that made Izuku and Ochako happy was Inko giving them both hers and Hisashi's wedding bands as a way to prove they're married. Izuku tried to stop her, but his mother insisted as a way to congratulate them on their marriage. Oddly enough, the center emerald on what is now Ochako's wedding ring is a fox curled around the round emerald sitting as the centerpiece of the band. 9. Finally the day of their honeymoon came for them. At the airport, Izuku, Ochako, and Inko walked in and were met by a scrawny man that looked almost sickly to the point many questioned if he was even able to be out of a hospital. Izuku instantly recognized him but Inko wasn't unsure as to who he was. 2.
Young Midoriya's, I presume. The man stated this for the young successor to understand he's meeting them incognito. Mr. Yagi, it's nice to see you again. Izuku tried to pretend he didn't know it was All Might, but it was painstakingly obvious that he was trying too hard. All Might told me to give these to you both. He handed them both a small folder. Inside are your plane tickets, a letter of credit to use in Tokuchigawa and the information for the resort hotel that they need. Izuku looked through to smile and bow at his mentor. Thank you alright Ochako, let's get going. Remember to take care of Kitsu mom. Catching himself quickly, Izuku was able to keep his mentor's cover. 1. I'm well aware that he is All Might, Izuku. The hair and voice is a dead giveaway, plus I saw him and you on the beach several times. Izuku hears Ochako's voice in his head. 3. I will sweetie. Take care and don't have too much fun. I'm not ready for grandkids yet. Izuku went red while Ochako hummed a happy tune thinking of a small family with Izuku on her family's estate. 6. Once they started to board, Ochako and Izuku were a bit on edge due to not being on a plane ever before. Thankfully, the passenger in front of them reassured them saying that there shouldn't be anything to worry about. This helped as they began to ascend. The jitters they had slowly went away, well for Izuku at least. Ochako unfortunately started to feel a bit queasy. A stewardess noticed this to come by and ask about her well-being. From what he knew about flying, it was an interesting experience, but being in first class also helped. Ma'am, are you all right? 1. I'm feeling a little nauseous. Is that normal when flying? Seems it's a case of air sickness for you. It happens regularly with first-time flyers, so we have a stock of saltine crackers, motion sickness medication called Dramamine and ginger ale in our cupboards as a way to help. I'll get you some, and if you think you're going to be sick, there's a restroom in the front over here to the right. Ochako nodded as the stewardess went to do as she said while Izuku gave Ochako head pats to help give her his empathy, knowing he doesn't enjoy seeing her like this. When the stewardess came back, she brought a bottle of ginger ale and a set of saltine crackers along with the medicine. She placed the liquid in a cup for Ochako along with the medicine in her hands. In one gulp, Ochako swallowed both the medicine and the whole cup of ginger ale. She then grabbed the saltine crackers to finish them as if it was nothing to make the stewardess hesitantly give her the bottle itself. Everyone on the plane watched as she gulped down a near full 2-liter bottle in seconds with blank faces, amazed she could so easily do this. When she finished, Ochako smiled at the stewardess before giving her the bottle and thanking her for her help. She just smiled before slowly walking away, accepting that what she witnessed just happened. Ochako then began leaning on Izuku and hugging his sides while slowly falling asleep in the crevice of Izuku's neck. Well, that was fast. I didn't think that would kick in for at least an hour. Guess you can't be motion sick if you're asleep. 15. Few hours later, as the plane landed, Ochako finally started to wake up. The two of them start getting out of their seats to find their luggage. Once they left the airport, the two rented a taxi and traveled a little through the town to see it was rather stuffed with people. They started to look around a little before finding out that it was due to a festival that was happening in the next few days. The two agreed to take time to go to this and take the time to enjoy it along with everything else. Eventually they came upon the entrance to the resort to knock on the entrance. A woman in her 40s answered it with Izuku greeting and showing her the letter All Might gave them for the lady to welcome them into the resort. They were checked in and escorted to their room, where they noticed an oshin right outside their back door. The woman said they'd bring dinner around 8 for them to enjoy the commodities of the resort to their heart's content. This place is amazing. I really owe All Might for this. He said it wasn't a big deal, so don't worry as much about it. Just prove to him your gratitude by doing your best in Ua. I'm sure that'll be enough for him. Ochako reassured Izuku, who still felt bad that he was being offered such a luxury vacation when the symbol of peace in his mind deserved one far more than him. Hey Izuku. Can you help me tie this? Izuku glanced over to see Ochako with the robe the resort offered as a commodity to them wrapped around her, barely covering her unmentionables to make the green-haired boy gain a nosebleed. Oh Ochako, what are you doing? 1. I'm trying to put this on, but the robe's a little too small for me. So can you please tie this for me while I hold my chest in? Izuku was nervous, but nodded to quickly tie his wife's sash up to see just how tight it really was. We could ask them for a bigger one, can't we?
he asks, seeing that the robe is practically skin-tight against her hips and chest. That would probably be a good idea. Hopefully this isn't the biggest one they have, she says, the moment she lets go of her arm around her chest. Her breasts rip the fabric and expose themselves to Izuku. His eyes instantly go to the size of dinner plates before he's thrown off balance by a nosebleed. Well, that kinda stinks. 1. I'm gonna go out and ask if they have a bigger size for you. Izuku ran out of the room to find an employee to explain the situation and ask if they had a larger size for his wife. Fortunately, they did consider how quirks alter people's bodies now to accommodate those who have larger frames due to them. Izuku was given the new robe and apologized for the ripping of the other. The employee said it wasn't an issue and that one of their workers had a sewing quirk to help with fixing it in case things like this happen. Izuku came back with the new robe for Ochako to thank him and give a kiss on the cheek. This made Izuku blush a bit as he turned around to let Ochako change. This time, the robe was a proper fit and helped keep certain parts of her body covered that would cause Izuku to lose more blood than it should be humanly possible to. Once that was over, Izuku changed and the couple started to look around the resort a bit to see what was possible. The place's motto was to revitalize and rejuvenate the mind and body for them to have massages, saunas, and their major selling point besides the onsen was a sand mineral bath where they would have special minerals inside the sand to help cleanse and restore someone's skin to what it should be. So what should we do first, Izuku? Ochako looked at the list of things to do, not sure where they should start first. We should space out what we do and when so we can take the time to enjoy each and every one of the things. Maybe a massage should help with the stress from the plane trip. I'm with you there. The seats made my back and tails stiff. I think a good massage is what I need. The two walked over to the room where they would be asked to lay down face first and to uncover themselves for their specialists to begin right away. Once this was done, two people came in to begin working on both their backs to start. A male masseuse went over to Izuku and began violently beating his back to the point it felt more like he was meaning to hurt him rather than help him. Meanwhile, a woman was tending to Ochako, being a bit too touchy-feely for the brunette's liking. Granted, she's never had a massage by a professional before, but this was something she'd rather not have happen often. Once they were done, Izuku strangely felt much better with some muscle pains that were on him actually being gone and feeling more nimble than before. He thanked the man before giving him a tip. Ochako, on the other hand, felt a little more uneasy after this, with the woman still being a tad too uncomfortable for her liking. When they left, she almost swore she heard the female masseuse say that she liked her ass for this to somewhat ruin her desire to do this again. Or at least with the masseuse that she had. 6. What would you like to do next? Ochako looked at the list before deciding on the sauna for their next one. So what are saunas? She asked Izuku, since she wasn't exactly that certain from never really going into one. To make it simple, saunas use hot rocks that you pour cold water on to emulate a steam effect. This opens your pores with the steam cleaning them out, allowing any dirt that would cause bad skin to come out. Ochako understood this with the two walking into the changing area. When they got in, they noticed that it was a co-ed sauna for Izuku to be uneasy. Taking advantage of her husband's uncertainty, Ochako held her towel hardly covering her body and sat extremely close to Izuku. He tried to move away, but Ochgao's tails blocked him to not be that far of a distance from her. 3. This feels really nice. Ochako smiled at this while pouring a little water on the rocks to produce some more steam. Unfortunately for Izuku, he was starting to become too hot under the situation before feeling a hand on his thigh. Hey Izuku, I want you to do something for me. What is it? Ochako looked at him with a serious face before answering. I want you to grab my butt and tell me what you think as a man. 23. Wait, what? 1. That female masseuse commented on how nice of a butt I have to where I wanted to have you tell me if it's okay. I don't want some woman that I don't know and was not a fan of how touchy she was with my body to tell me my ass is good. I want you to do those things to me. So as a request as your wife, can you please grab my butt and tell me if it fits what you like? Izuku couldn't think of a way to deny it before nodding. Ochako turned a bit to pull her tails up and reveal her bare ass to Izuku. He began grabbing it for her to smile. What do you think? It's very soft. Izuku tried to find the best words to explain it without sounding like a pervert in his eyes. 2. Is that all? Is it too big for you, too soft? Would you rather there be more muscle? The size isn't something I should judge on. It's very nice and I don't think any muscle is needed. It's soft, but it feels right for a softness. As far as I can tell, its level is completely balanced. 10 Ochako started to giggle at this before speaking. You just went into detail about what my butt is like to you. Well, you said you wanted to know. Izuku pulled his hand back and curled into a ball, wanting to die after saying what he did. It's okay. To be honest, I like it when you touch me. Makes me feel like I really am yours. Ochako and Izuku began to have a heated makeout session in the sauna to make the already steaming room even more heated. The only thing that was going through Izuku's mind at this moment though was one thing. This trip would be a long one way or another. The morning sun shining through the windows of their room at the resort shines into their eyes, causing them to stir from their sleep. First, Izuku awakens to see the crimson silk pajamas Ochako is sleeping in, taking up most of his vision, the rest being the light cast through the windows. Ochako tightens the grip she has around Izuku as she slowly rises. Izuku incidentally is pulled into her breasts that are peeking through the unbuttoned silk shirt she was sleeping in. Her soft flesh being pressed against his face, though slightly embarrassed, the softness is a reassuring and comforting feeling. Unfortunately, that feeling is quickly replaced by that of asphyxiation since Izuku can't breathe through his wife's mammoth mammaries. He quickly shimmies his way to some air, waking up Ochako in the process. She yawns, then looks down at her green-haired husband, whose face is slightly squished by her large breasts. She takes her hand and strokes it through his hair before greeting him. 6. Good morning, Izuku. Hope you slept well. She smiled as Izuku tapped her arm to explain he couldn't really breathe. Sorry. She lets go for the OFA user to take a deep breath in before speaking. Thanks. So, what do you want to do today? Izuku tried to ask for Ochako to think while stretching. I don't know. I want to try and see that festival tonight, but I'm not sure what to do during the day. She states this while moving her tails one by one to get blood flow through them before getting up. How is that comfortable? There's bones in your tails, right? So laying on them would make them hurt in the morning, right? Maybe. It's kinda like when you fall asleep on your arm and you wake up with it still asleep. They just feel a little numb in the morning. Also, I think it's just a way of how my anatomy works. I can sleep on them and it feels perfectly fine. Almost like when I slept with my mother when I was a little girl. So it's somewhat natural for you to sleep like that? Call it whatever you want. Either way, what's for breakfast? Izuku opened the sliding door to see the people of the resort had brought their breakfast to them and were already heading back to the main reception area. Yum! The two say in unison upon seeing the meal brought to them. Not wasting time, Izuku and Ochako sat down to a nice meal of gohan, which is simple steamed rice as well as a bowl of miso soup. The main dish was a nice helping of grilled salmon with natto and tsukemono. Google it. To accompany it. Fish tastes really good. Izuku glances over to see Ochako having half the salmon in her mouth and the tail dangling. 30. Wah. Izuku couldn't help but laugh at the image in front of him as he continued eating. Ochako grabs the fins of the tail and pulls it back out of her mouth, revealing the skeleton of the salmon she had inhaled, then placing it back on the plate. This nearly causes Izuku to choke on his rice, seeing his wife reenact a scene from a children's cartoon. 7. So why don't we do a little window shopping today? I'm sure we can find something nice that you'll enjoy. Ochako's face lit up when Izuku mentioned that he wants to find something for her. Can we find something for Kitsu and your mother too? Why not? They finish their breakfast and start heading to the bath to wash up before heading out to town. Inside, Ochako sits Izuku beside her for them to enjoy the feel of the hot open air bath on their body. This is really nice. There was nothing I enjoyed more than taking baths in our outside onsen at home. So invigorating having nature surround you while you bathe. Ochako gave a smile at this for Izuku to remember the outside baths. So this must be almost nostalgic for you. Almost. I'm used to all the little foxes jumping around and playing in the water and around the cherry tree that grew over the one at home. Mom would always shoo them away though. They were smelly little critters, but they're adorable. Izuku glanced over at his wife in curiosity. If you want, you can make some foxes with your quirk to make this more like home for you. I don't mind. Ochako thought about this before shrugging. Might as well. She snaps her fingers, causing a bunch of foxes to be summoned as if out of thin air. They began playing in the water and nipping at each other, enjoying the steam. Izuku watches the fox pups yip and bark at each other and a few swimming in the hot spring. As he's looking around, he notices a much larger and humanoid fox man sitting across from them in the hot spring. The fox turns and looks at him before raising 3 fingers off his bicep and greeting Izuku. Not knowing what else to do, he waves back before Ochako leans her head into his shoulder. 651. Should I be concerned about him? Izuku asks, pointing to the very buff fox. Oh, him? He's harmless. Do you want to know his name? 1. What is it? He. His name is Tiny. Ochako giggles. Tiny the fox simply nods before going back to watching the little foxes play in the hot spring. Tiny? There's nothing tiny about him. He could probably take All Might in a wrestling match. 10. I might be buff kid, but I'm not insane, Tiny says in a surprisingly deep voice before going back to supervising the fox pups. 15. Tiny can talk. Yes, he can. He's also really smart even for a fox since they are known for their cunning. I found him when he was a baby much like Kitsu and raised him, apparently that's his quirk. 7. Izuku looked at Tiny and back at Ochako before going back to Tiny. I swear my life was never this complicated when I was quirkless. Sure, I might have been bullied, but I never had to deal with talking animals that look like they're on steroids to a normal person. I don't even know what steroids are. How is this complicated though? There's humans who have 2 heads and people who can literally break time by rewinding it to any previous point in its existence. Izuku was going to say something, but didn't, seeing logic in Tiny's reasoning. 12. Told you he was smart, he helped me with math, Ochako says with a smile. Izuku just shrugs, taking her statement at face value. I have a new question. Where do they come and go when you summon and unsummon them? Is that the right word for it? Izuku asks Ochako as she steps out of the bath slightly to start brushing her tails. 1. I have no idea actually. Tiny. Where do you come from when I summon you guys? Ochako asks looking back at the buff fox, who is helping a fox pup learn to swim. We come from the Inari's realm. I help the goddess brew sake when I'm not in this world. He responds. Izuku and Ochako look at each other before Izuku just shrugs. She is very kind and takes the form of a white-haired woman with 9 tails in case you wish to know what Kami no Inari looks like. 2. Well, that paints a mental picture at least. Izuku states this as he starts having a few foxes nip at his hair and lick his face for the salt in his sweat. Anyway, I'm gonna get out so I can get ready. Take as much time as you need, Ochako. Same with you, Tiny. Will do, Lord Inari. Be sure to give Lady Inari plenty of fox pups in the near future. Tiny replies before going back to teaching the baby foxes how to swim. He's a good dad, Ochako says with a smile watching the buff boy and his pups. 3 few hours later, Izuku and Ochako had begun their adventure out into the town to notice the nice lil hustle and bustle of it. To Izuku, this was the same as any ordinary tourist attraction site, but Ochako has never seen this before and she is mesmerized by the sight. All the sounds and people were a new thing that she was happy to see. They started passing a small shop that Ochako stopped to have something catch her eye. Izuku. Let's go in here. Considering they were honestly just traveling aimlessly, he agreed and went in. Once they head inside, he notices it is an old pawn shop. Welcome kitties. What can I do for y'all? It's just me today. My husband is away at the moment. The older woman running the store asks, seeing the Kyubi and green-haired man enter. We're just window shopping, figured we would have a look around. Izuku replies before following Ochako around the store. Izuku. Do you see this? Think Kitsu would like this to play with? Ochako asks, holding up a fox plushie for Izuku to see. He squeezes the plush toy, feeling how soft it is before agreeing with Ochako. I think he will. He's probably going to sleep beside it or bite it. Izuku replies. Ochako holds onto the fox plush as the two continue to walk around the store. As the two walk, something catches Izuku's eye, a lone scabbard missing its sword. The red and white paint along the sheath showing the faces of foxes drawn in the red. The metal casing at the opening in the top is laced in gold in the shape of a kitsune wrapping its tails around the opening of the sheath. The end of the scabbard is the head of a fox in solid gold protecting the end of the scabbard. Hey Ochako, do you recognize this? Izuku asks, calling Ochako from a painting of another fox. What is it? She asks, walking over. Izuku lifts the sword's sheath off the katana stand and shows Ochako. I remember the katana at your home doesn't have a sheath. Will this work for it? He asks, handing her the sheath. Ochako looks it over before reading the kanji down the back of the sheath. Fox's cunning, swift strike. House Inari. She reads out loud. This is my grandfather's katana sheath. She says before looking at the store owner. How did you come across this? Ochako asks the old woman. My husband had found that sheath many years ago. He knew it belonged to House Inari, but he didn't know which of the shrines it belonged to. He said he found it on a battlefield between an army of heroes and a mob of villains, she replies. This is the sheath to my grandfather's katana. He lost it at the Battle of Saitama 60 years ago. He was struck by a villain with a blade quirk and it cut the scabbard off of his armor. After the battle he tried searching for it but never could find it. Ochako explains, causing the old woman to walk from behind the counter to get a better look at Ochako. 33. It has been a long time since a kitsune has come to my store. Are you of House Inari? She asks. Yes, I'm Lady Inari and this here is my husband. Ochako says, showing the older woman the family seal she carries on her in her coin purse. My. Well, seeing as you are the rightful owner, you may have it. It has been in my shop as a decoration for a long time. It's finally time for it to go home. You can keep looking around if you want. I also have some more fox paintings and charms if you are interested, she says before walking back to her desk and having a seat behind the counter. Ochako made some small talk with the woman running the store as Izuku continued to browse around. With no rare all-might merchandise or anything that really strikes his interest, he pays for the plush fox before attaching the empty katana sheath to the side of his yukata, waving goodbye as they leave. The two continue to walk around Otafude looking through stores, restaurants and even a cat cafe or two before something catches Ochako's eye. At the end of the street is a tea house named Shishitsu no Kitsune, or the Fox's Tea House. She excitedly pulls Izuku's arm towards the tea house, which he complies and speeds up. The husband and wife duo enter the traditional style and architecturally designed building, sliding the rice paper door to the side. Welcome to Shishitsu no Kitsune. My name is Lin. How may I help you today? An orange-haired woman with fox's ears and a single tail greets as the two enter the tea house. A room for two, please. Ochako asks, wagging her tail slightly in excitement. Sure. Right this way. Lin replies, picking up two leather-bound menus and leading them to their own private room. Izuku excuses himself to use the bathroom before sitting down in their room, leaving Ochako to read over her menu. For a place called the Fox's Tea House, there aren't any foxes here. But I can fix that. Ochako says to herself before snapping her fingers. Out from behind a pillow in the room, an Arctic fox pops out and then starts to snuggle up with Ochako. She lovingly strokes the pristine white fur on the fox as it curls up in her lap. She begins humming a tune to herself, leaving the door open so Izuku can find her. 2. Well, hello Foxy. What is your name? A male voice asks. Ochako looks up from her menu with an irritated look. A brown-haired man is leaning at the edge of the doorway with his arms folded, purposely flexing his measly biceps. Ochako ignores him and moves her hand to a degree where the light reflects off her wedding ring and into the man's face. 6. If I were you, I would apologize to the plants that create the oxygen that you're just wasting flapping your gums to a married woman. The man scowls hearing Ochako's insult but brushes it off and tries once more. 3. Why's a lady like you all alone in this measly room with a rat in your lap then? He asks. Ochako shoots him a glare as the fox in her lap begins growling at him. My husband is in the restroom and he is an Arctic fox. Ochako responds through her teeth. The fox in her lap growls louder, baring its teeth at the man. Growl all you want, stupid animal. You're not intimidating. He responds. Ochako merely sighs and closes her menu before putting two fingers to her temple. Listen here, sweet cheeks, you and I are gonna leave this PLA goo, he says before doubling over in pain as a swift kick to the genitals from behind him shuts him up. This the thing troubling you, Ochako? Izuku asks, picking up the man who is gripping his own testicles after having them kicked full force by Izuku. Ochako nods as Izuku picks up the man by the nape of his neck and hem of his pants before walking towards the entrance. Ochako resumes humming as she hears a window shatter at the front of the restaurant. Sorry about that, Ochako. Lin at the front said to throw him away through the window. She also said not to open it first. Izuku says, coming back to the room and petting the fox in Ochako's lap. 26. Thank you. It was getting hard to breathe. His ego was pushing all the air out of the room. Izuku stifles a nasally laugh hearing her comment. He sits across from her at the kotatsu in the room before picking up a menu and reading over what they have. What tea are you getting? Kanasha. It's a green tea. It's my favorite, and my mother actually had a kanasha plant at our home. It was the large bush near the entrance to the manor. 1. Well, I might as well try it and see what it tastes like. Izuku stated this with a bit of optimism in his voice, hoping to enjoy the tea. As he said this, a second fox came from under the kotatsu to sit on Izuku's lap. Wanna get a few snacks as well? Ooh. That sounds nice. Maybe we can get the Momiji manju here. I've had it a few times when my mom made it and really liked it. Momiji it is. Not long after agreeing, their waitress came to ask for their orders for them to give it and ask if they had anything that the foxes on their laps could eat. The waitress said she had a few stems of leaves that are safe and good for foxes to eat that they were going to throw away, and was actually more than happy to give them to someone who'd enjoy them. Some time passed for the duo to be at ease with all the smells before the waitress came back with the tea and their steamed treat. The batch was rather fresh and came right off the steamer for it to still be nice and hot. The flavor of both the bean paste and the flour mixture was enjoyable for them to the point it almost tasted like it melted in their mouths. Meanwhile, the foxes on their laps were enjoying the nice taste of their tea stems as they regularly gnawed on them. Izuku's fox, however, was feeling a little sly to glance up at the table and slowly take one of the manju off the plate to earn a laugh from both him and Ochako. Eventually the two finished and continued their journey through the tourist area, with the foxes returning from where they came from. Hours continued to pass for the two, with the sun slowly setting and the festival starting up. Once this happened, the two placed their newly acquired belongings off in their room before heading out to see what the outside event had in store. As they entered the area, Izuku and Ochako were met with an image of stands side by side all the way down as far as they could see. Ochako felt as if she was a kid in a candy store seeing all the lights and stands of different games and food. She nearly tugged Izuku's arm out of its socket, rushing in to see what they had. 11. It's so pretty. Ochako looked at the stands, amazed that such things could have been going on without her getting the chance to experience. Try to be careful. We can easily get lost in this crowd. Izuku says this for his fox wife to hardly listen and keep looking around before stopping at a goldfish stand. Wanna try, sweetie? It's only 100 yen a try. Ochako nodded to pass the man a coin, with the man passing a small scoop that was ridiculously thin to the point it was almost impossible to win with. 3. So how do you play this, sir? All ya gotta do to win is pull the goldfish out of the water with that and avoid it from breaking. If it does, then it's all over. If not, you can keep going till it does. Ochako heard this and glanced at both the tank and her net, thinking of the best option to do this. In one quick motion, she scooped a goldfish, brought it out of the water, and tossed it over for Izuku to barely catch the small fish so it wouldn't fall on the ground. All three of them looked at Ochako's net to see it wasn't broken. I can still go on if it's still able to pick them up, right? Yeah, you can, sweetheart. If ya get another fish, the same rules apply. The older man said happily for Izuku to get a bad inkling he may regret this. Not even 5 minutes later, Ochako has captured all the fish for the man to go pale, seeing over 60 goldfish were taken for a total of 100 yen. Since they didn't need all the fish, Ochako gave back all but 2, with one being given to a 6-year-old boy to the side of her that was trying and couldn't succeed. Since he gave about 1,500 yen to the man, she figured it was more than fair that he at least got one of her fish. The boy thanked her and walked into the festival to a woman they believed was his mother. The old stallman smiled at Ochako as she got up with Izuku and continued down the stands. Stand after stand, Ochako was able to play the games and win ridiculous things that would take people a lot of money and time to claim for small amounts of money. Luckily for the people running the stalls, she gave back most of them except for 1 or 2, with some being given to kids who were trying and failed beside her to give them a smile before going to the next stall. They eventually got near the end with them being in front of an old shrine. 5. So what do you think of festivals? Izuku was curious, with Ochako smiling ear to ear, giddy with excitement. I'll take that as you like it, he says, causing her to nod excitedly in response. There's all sorts of foods for us to get and masks and games. Let's go to every booth. Ochako declares happily, walking around and spinning with her arms extended. Izuku smiles seeing her have fun. He has grown fond of her over their week together. The two walk slowly through the hundreds of vendors at the festival, Ochako making it a point to spend as much yen as possible solely in food. Buying everything from fried dough bubbles, grilled squid, grilled corn on the cob, hash browns, hot dogs on a stick, takoyaki, tamagoyaki, curry rice, taiyaki, nori, onigiri with sesame seeds and sushi. Not caring about the caloric intake in the slightest, every once in a while Izuku will take a piece of food for himself. His interests are more focused on the lanterns themselves. Though the festival is typically held in August, some unfavorable conditions and villain attacks had pushed back the festival to late January. The two walk across a bridge passing over a stream between the two sides of the festival. Water lanterns float and bump into each other around the stream. They stop at the top of the bridge looking out at all the people and lanterns floating in the air and on the water. The candles causing them to float create a romantic atmosphere for the two newlyweds. Izuku grabs Ochako's hand as they rest their arms on the ledge, causing her to face him. "Tonight is lovely, isn't it?" Ochako says with a smile, looking down at her shorter husband. "It is. I've had a lot of fun up here with you. You're a wonderful and beautiful woman, Ochako." Izuku replies as she leans her head on top of his, their height difference being a bit of a sight for the locals. A few jealous looks and looks of pity from some of the people there are ignored by the couple. Izuku feels himself leave the ground as Ochako uses her quirk to levitate him to her height. She wraps her hands around his shoulders, gazing into his emerald eyes lovingly. She tilts her head to the side with Izuku doing the same in the opposite direction as they close the gap between them. The softness of Ochako's lips overwhelm his system as the two kiss each other, the taste of caramel gracing her lips. Ochako's eyes close tight as she kisses her husband. For an eternity they could remain like this, but soon the festival came to an end and they returned to their room. Once they got inside, Ochako and Izuku walked into their room with the brunette letting go to shut the door. She glanced over to the OFA user with a bit of a lustful look. "Tonight's the night we finally break in our marriage, right?" Izuku glanced over to see her sliding her kimono down to show her skin and began internally panicking. "Oh God, it's finally happening. Saturday afternoon. Mom. We're home," Izuku announces as they come through the door to Izuku's apartment. Inko is in the kitchen preparing herself lunch with Kitsu sitting on the counter watching her stir the broth she is preparing. "Welcome back, you two. Did you have fun?" Inko asks, taking the broth and pouring it into 4 bowls. "It was amazing," Ochako says, smiling at the memory of their first time. "Did you bring me back any grandbabies?" Inko asks, bringing out the miso soup for the 4 of them. Kitsu sloppily slurps up the broth from the bowl that is given to him. 6. I hope so. Ochako answers happily, rubbing her hand over her lower stomach. Izuku rubs the back of his neck in embarrassment. Time progressed to the first day of school in the Midoriya house as it normally would. Izuku and Ochako adjusting to married life while Kitsu enjoyed the company from the duo and Inko. Occasionally, Izuku and Ochako would head over and try to put back some normality for Ochako by taking on her shrine duties to help her mother out. But for the most part, they prepared for moving into the UA dorms with the day fast approaching. Ironically, being a devotee to the goddess of fertility, Ochako didn't end up getting pregnant. Despite this, she was determined to have a pup of her own in the future. Izuku, on the other hand, was rather relieved in a majority due to the fact he didn't exactly have any ability to support both him and Ochako, let alone a baby if they had one. The thought of how much money went into having one scared the OFA user greatly, to the point he somewhat froze a lot of times due to this. But Ochako kept reassuring him that they were alright even if they ran into that issue, knowing that they wouldn't deal with this alone. These words were somewhat solace to Izuku as the image of a baby with his eyes and Ochako's hair and quirk was shown in his mind to make him blush a bit. Completely forgetting the fact that he is considered a samurai lord and that his own mother-in-law said she would cover the costs of her grandbaby. 16. Finally, the day of moving out came with the duo packing their things and heading to UA. They were told to drop everything off at the dorms before heading to their class, with Izuku somewhat getting them lost. Once they found Class 1A after an hour of searching, the married duo stood in front of a massive door with the class number painted on it. Kitsu's paws and nails clicking against the tile floor of the halls in the main building as he trots along following them. They really know how to emphasize the size of some people. Izuku says, staring wide-eyed at the massive door in front of him. No kidding. Ochako stared up to the door that was even large in her standards. The duo opened the door to hear shouts from inside to see none other than Bakugo arguing with one of their new classmates on the first day before class even started. Get your feet off that desk immediately. It is an insult to the students that came before us and to those WHO made IT. A boy with glasses and movements like a robot began shouting for Bakugo to only scoff and insult him to add insult to injury in the blue-haired boy's eyes. Did the school you come from shove that stick up your ass, or were you born with it? The two continued to bicker until the classroom acknowledged Ochako and Izuku at the door with a small fox pup hopping up and growling at Bakugo from a desk. Holy crap! Where'd the dog come from? A boy with blonde hair with a black pattern of a lightning bolt in it stated before a girl with ox-cord earlobes smacked him over the head. 3. That's a fox genius. But you have a point. Kitsu jumped from desk to desk before resting on Izuku's desk behind Bakugo, glaring him down like he was the boss of the class. HMPH, figures useless Deku would be so weak, even his seed can't even make a human brat. 25. The fox is one from the temple that I care for. Izuku's still more of a man than you are right now. I bet you're a measly 2 centimeters where it matters. You've never seen a woman's chest, you arrogant piece of shio. Where are my manners? A lady shouldn't speak in such a vulgar way, even if it is to a walking sack of garbage. Ochako adds a bit of sting to the final part to make the ash blonde get up and prepare to get in her face. Izuku however stops this by standing in between them with green lightning surrounding him. 5. Step off Kachin. Not gonna ask you a second time. During his time with Ochako, the two learned of ways to have Izuku control his quirk at least for the majority of not breaking his bones and using what he could. At the moment, he could use about 4% at a single point, or 5% if it's through his entire body for a few minutes before stopping and preventing his bones from breaking. Bakugo stepped back with Izuku and Ochako going to their seats. Kitsu then began sitting on Izuku's lap like a loyal dog before a yellow caterpillar came in near the podium. Once there, the unknown creature revealed itself to be a man with long black hair and a scratchy appearance in some kind of jumpsuit. Hello, I'm Shota Aizawa and I'll be your homeroom teacher. The newly acquainted man pulls out 20 uniforms from his sleeping bag and places them on the podium. Put these on and meet me outside. Nobody really argued as they did what their tired homeroom teacher said to begin heading towards the changing room. 1. Mr. Aizawa. Do you have a pair of scissors or a needle and thread? I'm going to need to fix the pants of the uniform so my tails can fit through it. Ochako asks, holding up her gym uniform. Here, he says, handing her both in a tone just as undead and robotic as his greeting. 11. On the training field, the class had begun to walk out one by one to stand in a set while Aizawa explained to them what they were doing. Today you'll be taking quirk apprehension tests. You'll be doing 8 different fitness tests you've done in middle school and using your quirk in it. Bakugo. Aizawa passes the ash blonde a ball. What was your highest score in middle school? 68 meters. 7. Try using your quirk. Bakugo did as his teacher said and stood in the middle of a circle. He pulled his arm back and began to send off the ball as far as he could. Before he did though, he shouted, "Go to hell," for no apparent reason to make everyone question this. When Aizawa showed the distance on his phone, it showed that the ball was thrown a total of 705.2 meters. The school system's attempt for normality is overrated nowadays, with potentials of students being squandered. These tests will show just how much talent you truly have as a whole. Also, the one who comes in last will be deemed to have no talent and be expelled on the spot. Everyone panicked at this, with some being more scared than others since their quirks weren't adapted to this. Unfortunately, this meant nothing as they would have to work hard as they can just to not be the weakest link in the group. After the tests, once the exams were done, Aizawa pulled everyone together to explain the results. So going over the tests one by one would be pointless, so we'll be showing you on the screen up here. Granted, you all probably know where you stand. A giant board was shown with the places of everyone being shown. Ochako had obtained second directly under a girl called Yayorozu, most likely due to the fact she botched the long-distance run. She practically was in the top 2 every event besides that one, mainly due to the fact she was not exactly a runner per se. Izuku on the other hand had obtained 5th just barely as him and Bakugo were neck and neck through all the events. On the very last spot was a boy with balls on his head called Mineta. 5. Oh, and that whole expulsion thing was a lie. Everyone looked at their teacher amazed as he explained it was a logical ruse to get everyone to give it their all. Not many were exactly fond of the act as he left. Syllabuses are on the desk in the classroom. Take the rest of the day to unpack and get to know one another. You'll be here for 3 years, so it wouldn't hurt to learn about each other. Nobody was exactly proud of how the first day ended, but they were at least happy that nobody was expelled. Especially Mineta, who passed out from the shock of having a large guy by the name of Shoji carry him back to the dorms. One at the dorms, the 20 teenagers walked into the room to see their luggage with a paper roster of where everyone was. For the most part, everyone was split up between guys and girls. The only difference was that there was only one name for Midoriya, with it being on the girls' side for some reason. Why the hell is Midoriya the only one that gets to sleep around sexy babes? Mineta started to shout with both the blonde that was named Kaminari and a guy that could make tape come out of his elbows kinda agree and flip out. 2. It might be because me and Ochako are married and putting her on the guy's side might be a little too much. There was silence in the room as everyone heard Izuku say that they were married. Well, you probably should come up with a nickname to call me or Izuku. Ochako says in a bit of a chuckle for most of the class to still be in shock. They were only pulled out by Kitsu barking at them to get their attention back into reality. 5. You're married. Almost everyone in the class shouted except for Bakugo, who only scoffed at them. That's so cool. Congratulations. A pink-skinned girl by the name of Ashido says this before hugging Ochako and trying to reach up since they were significantly different in size. You bastard. Not only do you have one of the hottest girls in our class right now, you're also married to her. What the heck, man? At least give us some kind of hope. Both Mineta and Kaminari shout this as the groups begin accepting and heading up to set their rooms up. 9. As they did, Ochako and Izuku had found their room on the 4th floor, and it being slightly larger than average, most likely to avoid 2 people being cramped inside a room meant for 1. This is nice. Ochako looked around with Izuku setting some of his necessities in the drawers along with some of his and Ochako's Fox and All Might stuff. So what do you think of our classmates so far? I mean, you already hate Kachin, but what about everyone else? Well, the bald kid and the blonde guy the first kinda don't like just because of their little act on the 1st floor a little while ago. The girls seem nice, but I think the purple-haired one kinda doesn't like me for some reason, and the guys for the most part don't seem that bad. Some though aren't exactly looking at me where they should though. The last bit the fox girl says a bit agitated, thinking she was being eyed up by some of the class. 3. It's probably just because you're so pretty and taller than they'd be used to. To be fair, I was a little frightened as well when we first met. But you still got used to it, and I like when you stare at me. Makes me feel wanted by you. This somewhat made Izuku blush a bit before getting to his point. Just give them time. I'm sure this is a large adjustment to them as well. Izuku tried to keep his attention to setting up their room and hooking up his computer and laptop so they could both enjoy watching movies while they weren't doing much. All the while, Ochako noticed the faint glances by her husband, knowing he's still somewhat the nervous wreck he was back when they got married. This is why I like you, Izuku. You're so innocent it makes me want to jump you right now. They continued setting their room up to finish in record time and relax downstairs on the sofa with Kitsu. 29. As the hours pass, their classmates came down one by one, exhausted and somewhat envious of noticing Izuku being held onto by Ochako as they watched TV. Hey, so is everyone done setting up? Ashido asks for only Bakugo not to be downstairs. Guess for the most part. But has anyone seen Bakugo? A redhead by the name of Kirishima asked for Izuku to speak up. Kachin isn't the social type. Knowing him, he probably set up his room and went to sleep. 1. His loss then. Anyway, why don't we show off our rooms? Their pink-skinned classmate shouted this for almost everyone to kinda agree to it. First off is the guys. So onward to the boys' side. Wait, but I'm on the girls' side. How is that gonna? We'll do you and your foxy wife together, Midori. Now onward. Izuku felt like this was either going to be extremely ridiculous or extremely difficult, with there no way in between from what he's assessed from their classmate right off the bat. The first room on the group's hit parade was Tokiyami's room. Considering he was rather dark and brooding to begin with, Many weren't surprised when it had the feeling of a Transylvanian count's home when they entered. As they did, Kitsu was rather frightened by the area to burrow into Izuku's arms to hide his face. Next on the hit parade was Aoyama. His was rather what you'd expect as well from a man that was flashy and rather feminine in some ways. Decked wall to wall in bright things with their one classmate Yayorozu making sunglasses for everyone due to the lights. Next was Ojiro, who was rather normal compared to the first two in Mineta's. Well, they skipped his. 17. Who knew our classmates wore their hearts on their sleeves? Ochako whispered this to Izuku for them to laugh a bit. As with the others, everyone was somewhat normal for what they were shown to be. One of the most unique was the tape quirk user Siro having a unique room filled with rather exotic drapes to the point it was kinda odd how stylish he actually was. One of the most odd however was Todoroki. A bicolored boy with a room that, well, it was completely different in flooring and the design to the point nobody could believe the work he put in. After a buff guy by the name of Sato's room and a sweet treat for the girls and Kitsu, they went to the girls' side and started with the girl that had aux cords for ears called Jiru's room. They entered to see she had a rather interesting hobby of music to amaze and somewhat make some of their classmates scrutinize her on the choice of hobby. After was their invisible classmate Hagakuri's room, which was rather normal to say the least in a feminine aspect of what some believe when they think of the room. Alright. Time for the room I've been waiting for. Ashido shouted this as the group made it to Izuku and Ochako's room. Are you okay with them looking at our room? I know you are kinda the type of person that would prefer privacy a bit around most people. Izuku asked Ochako, who nodded in content. They're our classmates, so we'll at least need to get to know them. The door opened to a room that looked like something out of a fan otaku's paradise. Each part of the wall had some form of All Might or Fox souvenir to make the couple blush a bit. 2. These plushies of foxes are so adorable. I want one for my room. Kinda dig the fox statue here. Jiru states this to a small stone fox on the nightstand that turned from petrified rock to a living fox to speak up. Where'd this fox come from? Everyone couldn't help but laugh while Mineta and Kaminari looked through the room and found a large closet. They opened it to see Tiny standing with his arms crossed looking at the two. Geez, you two, how much fox stuff could you haul? 5 Before Kaminari could push Tiny out of the way, the large fox karate chopped his head hard. How dare you go through the young lord's and mistress's belongings, you cretins? Have you no shame? Everyone stopped to see Tiny and become dead silent when they heard the fox speak. 12. Did my ears just hear something, or did that bulking fox that looks like he took steroids just talk? Jiro asked this with Yaoyorozu going up to the fox to poke it. 3. Please refrain from poking me. I feel as if I am not a living being when you do that. Everyone screamed when Tiny shut the closet. As Yayorozu opened it again, the giant fox was gone. 19. Okay. Done here. Moving on. Ashido shouted this with notable fear, thinking she lived next to a cursed room. The rest of the rooms after were somewhat what you'd expect from everyone, with the most insane being the room belonging to their last recommended student that had an insanely large bed inside with next to no walking space. As everyone returned downstairs, they noticed quite a few foxes in the common space, with Tiny enjoying a bone that he was gnawing on. What is that thing? Ms. Hagakuri, please refrain from calling me a thing. It hurts my feelings. Tiny went to a small cup of green tea to sip from it for everyone to look at the duo for an answer. 7. Tiny's a fox that I raised when he was a pup. He has a quirk that allows him to have the shape he doesn't understand human language. Also, he's a great help with the foxes that are summoned by my quirk. Ochako says this while Izuku puts Kitsu down to play with some of the foxes in the room. Your school's principal is a rodent, so it shouldn't be that much of a surprise that there is another animal with a quirk. Sips Lady Ochako. Lord Inari. The tea I had made came out rather well if you would like some. I had also made plenty for everyone. Izuku and Ochako went to grab a few cups with some of the class questioning about drinking tea made by an animal. Mrs. Midoriya, just what can your quirk do? Iida asks this somewhat curious question as Ochako explains. Well, I can float things, summon foxes, make foxfire, and can turn invisible. All while looking cute as a button with my ears and tails. Ochako smiles with the girls beginning to ask a few questions of their own. So just how did you meet Midoriya? He was cleaning a shrine my family watches over. We have this tradition of marrying the person who cleans it out of pure heart to kinda have that be why we got married. Ochako acts as if this was normal for the girls to be kinda shocked by the answer to Yayorozu's question. Does he at least treat you right, Ribbit? A frog girl by the name of Sue asks for her to nod. 4. Did you two do anything yet? Wait. Why are you asking that, Ashido? Juru was somewhat embarrassed at this question to blush. It's just a question. We did. We're married after all. Nobody could say anything for a minute after hearing Ochako's pure reply. How's it feel to touch her body, Midoriya? The small grape man tried to speak before feeling something bite his ass. Looking behind, they noticed Kitsu decided to take it upon himself to defend his master's privacy. 17. Kitsu, that wasn't nice. Izuku says this while unlatching the small fox's jaw from their midget classmate. That was unfit to do, Kitsu. Whether this man, or whatever he is, deserved it, that does not mean you should do such a thing. That looks horrible on the young lord. Tiny lectures the small fox for him to kneel to the ground, putting his front paws on his snout while whimpering. 3. Still was kinda funny. Ochako starts to snicker at this before getting to a main point. He also deserved it if anything. That type of stuff is only worthy of mine and my husband's ears. Ochako shoves Izuku's head into her ample chest to make some guys kinda envy him and the girls kinda envious of Ochako. Can we at least know how big? Mina asks, showing clear signs she is also a massive pervert. 11. Yes, Ochako. We want to know what it was like, Toru adds, bouncing with excitement. Momo merely blushes hearing this and Juru covers her face in embarrassment. Fine. He's 35 centimeters. Ochako answers. The other girl's eyes go wide before Momo makes a meter stick and looks at just how long 35 centimeters actually is. 47. Holy shit. Does it actually fit? How would that even fit? The girls start mulling over what Ochako had told them, resulting in Izuku feeling threatened by the guys in the class who are looking at him with ire and embarrassment that his wife so easily talked about his member. Seeing that it is a good opportunity to do so, Izuku sneaks away and disappears to hide his embarrassment. 1. Does Tiny obey your commands that you do over your quirk, or does he do his own thing? Todoroki asks, changing subjects. I do my own thing, however I will not hesitate to come to Lady Ochako's aid should she need it. For now I am merely the servant to Lord and Lady Inari. Tiny answers with a slight bow. Hold on, why the fuck did you call that quirkless shit nerd Lord? Bakugo shouts, Tiny merely glaring at Bakugo for his volume before continuing. 6. Lord Inari is the current head of House Inari, one of the last remaining samurai clans in Japan according to this tale. Tiny answers, casually breaking the fourth wall and gaining a fan in the red-haired Kirishima. 10. If that nerd is a samurai, then I'm a fucking shogun. Bakugo begins going on a tirade. With a sigh, Tiny snaps his fingers, becoming enveloped in fire. As the fire disappears, Tiny is standing in full Jita's armor holding a 7-feet-long katana pointed at Bakugo's neck. 13. 12. You are the furthest from the honorable shogunate. You don't even have enough honor to look upon the blade of my sword, let alone die on it. It would be wise for you to leave my presence before you dishonor yourself even further. Tiny threatens. Everyone takes a step back at this, even Deku and Ochako, as neither of the two were expecting to see him get angry. Bakugo scoffs before wisely leaving the room. As quick as it appeared, Tiny sheds the armor in another burst of red flame, going back to his muscle form from earlier. My apologies, I do not like to become angry. 7. Okay, you're even more manly than I thought. Kirishima says with an awestruck look on his face. Tiny bows, accepting the compliment before sitting back down and pouring himself some more tea. 3. Okay, note to self. Do not anger Tiny or you may die. Kaminari says this with Mineta slowly moving towards the girls to try and get a view of something he shouldn't. 1. Before he could get any farther, he was tackled by an army of foxes who carried him away to an unknown location. Where are these things taking me? 9. If you want an honest answer, probably to their burrow where they could eat you. Foxes do like sweet berries and fruits after all. Ochako says this as the foxes leave the dorms with Mineta screaming into the night. 5. He's not gonna die. Right,
Izuku asked for Tiny to answer. I doubt it. Unless he really does something to anger them, like attempt to catch your mistress in an unsightly manner or attempt anything sexual in nature, he should lie. I think it also depends on if they're hungry or not. He takes a sip of tea before finishing. Either way, it's probably a 60 to 40 chance he'll live. 11. That's not a good percentage. 3. Perhaps Mr. Iida, but it is his own fault for doing things he should not. The group heard screams of Mineta in the distance before finding him running back in ragged clothes, shutting the door. ******. What the hell was that about? What did I do to deserve being treated like a chew toy for a bunch of feral dogs? They're foxes, jackass. Everyone shouted this with Tiny pulling out a book and reading glasses to continue where he left off. 4. So he reads too. Shiro asks for Izuku and Ochako to nod. I guess this fox is more educated than we believe. 1. Tiny's a smart boy. Ochako smiles before heading upstairs to get ready for bed with Izuku being pulled by the arm. 3. Don't break the bed yet, you two. Ashido says this for Ochako to correct her. If we're breaking anything, it's gonna be more than the bed. Everyone stopped to question if that was a metaphorical answer, or a real one. 3. Before you asked, you should see where they had their honeymoon. The floor is broken underneath what's left of the bed. Tiny comments before licking his fingers and flipping the page in the book he's reading. 14. So who was on to awe? Kaminari asked this before having a fox bite his shin to get a laugh out of Jiro. Are these things at least tested for rabies? 4. If I answer, will you leave and let me finish my book? The room went silent again for the giant fox to sigh. Yes, we do not have rabies. Now please be silent, I'm getting to a good part. Jiro kept stifling her laughter as everyone went to bed. As they did, Tiny had decided it was best for him to return home but decided to check on his masters first. He walked up the stairwell of the girls' side before getting to Izuku and Ochako's room. There, he was able to poof himself into the room via Ochako's quirk to see the two in a rather specific position. He smirked, realizing his line of protection may grow larger before leaving at the sound of Ochako releasing a shout. As the second day of school rolled out and came to a close, many of the class went back to the dorms tired and or in pain. For some people, Bakugo in particular had the latter of the issues due to him trying to pick a fight with Izuku for Ochako to give him a fist lit by a fox fire. The incident had the right side of his face badly burned, but he was healed not long after by Recovery Girl, with there being no scar to cause problems. She was able to heal his physical injuries, but the Ash Bond's pride was a completely different story, with it being crushed by a woman that laid under someone he deemed inferior to him in the bedroom. As they entered inside, they noticed Tiny sitting on the couch with a few foxes while reading the afternoon paper. 10. Hello members of 1A. Young Lord and Lady Inari. How was your second day? Tiny greets, looking up above his speculars at the class as they enter the building. Ochako walked over to the couch so she could pet some of the foxes around. It was nice. I also was able to put Bakugo in his place. Hey, fuck you, round face. I just went easy on you because I didn't want the loser to cry that his skank got hurt. Is that why I beat you last time? And besides, I get more than enough love making from Izuku. You wouldn't be able to match him in bed. Everyone began to wince at this burn before Ochako walked up to hers and Izuku's room. I'd love to explain more about how superior Izuku is to you, but a lady mustn't give away all her nightly secrets to someone that isn't her husband. 12. Izuku stood baffled that not only was his childhood bully knocked down a peg, but it was actually from his own wife that he loves and adores. As he came out of his daze, he noticed Kitsu bringing him down a set of clothes to change out of his uniform into. How'd you get these, Kitsu? Did Ochako or Tiny give them to you? The small fox barked as a way to answer Izuku before running over to the stairs where Ochako was coming down with some clothes and 2 towels in her hands. I'm going to take a bath. Would you care to join me, Izuku? Izuku went red with this before Iida jumped between them. That would be improper of a young adult to do, Midoriya's. Men and women have their own bathing areas for a reason. 3. Doesn't stop Kitsu from going in with Ochako. Tiny points this out while Ochako drags Izuku to the girls' half of the baths. So we're just gonna let them bathe together? Jiro asked as Yaoyorozu went to the kitchen. 7. It would appear so. Sato, would you mind assisting me in making some biscuits for the foxes? Sure, but why? They're such adorable little things and I'd like to show them how polite we can be since we somewhat didn't start on a pleasant foot. Tiny overheard this to smile while reading. Such a polite young lady. I do hope the young mistress and lord become good friends with her. The giant fox looked up to notice the small perverted grape walking towards the girl's side of the bath with a rather obscene look on his face. He does not learn, does he? Tiny gave a rather loud sigh before disappearing. Sneaking near where Izuku and Ochako went in, Mineta began to overhear a conversation they were having. So Izuku, what do you think of my hero suit? Ochako asked this while the silhouette of her was taking off her uniform. I think it's a really nice outfit for you. It really emphasized the fact that you're a shrine maiden and the durability is amazing. Izuku stopped changing as he went into his own muttering spree. This stopped however when it looked as if Ochako had hugged his back and kissed the nape of his neck. This made Izuku stop and stiffen as Ochako laughed at him. It's adorable how cute you are. Why don't we have some fun in the bath next? Ochako and Izuku walked towards the inside of the bath while Mineta leaned deeper inside. The lucky bastard. Midoriya gets to do sexy things with a bombshell like that. It's not fair. He slowly sneaked into the changing area to look over towards Ochako's clothes. He found her bra and was beyond baffled at the size of the cup being nearly as big as he is. Holy crap, her hooters are enormous. Having a desire to see exactly what Ochako's body looks like in all her glory. He began to slowly open the door to see Izuku's back and Ochako's head in front of him. 7. As they bathed, they continued to talk about things. Your skin is really smooth. Thanks. I was kinda worried my skin might lose some of its luster when I left the shrine. But maybe our nightly activities are what's keeping it the way it is. That and the lotion helps too. Ochako moves her head to kiss Izuku before giggling. To say this enraged the small grape man was an understatement. 1. This is what you deserve, you jerk. He began to pull his phone out before seeing a pair of eyes come out from the bathtub and stare directly at him. The eyes belonged to Tiny, who was hidden under a patch of bubbles. He pulled his finger up to shake from side to side as a way to say, I wouldn't do that if I was you, to the small man. Remembering how scary he is without any serious powers, Mineta put his phone away and backed up from the door. As he left, Mineta heard the sound of Ochako giggling and a thud on the ground for his mind to think what they were doing wasn't related to cleaning themselves, in the slightest. Damn it all, Mineta mentally screams, pulling at one of the grapes on his head. I was so close to seeing those mammoth mammaries. Those titanic tatas were right there. The eye candy was so close. Big isn't a word that can describe those boobs, and that damn bastard Midoriya gets them all to himself. He grumbles in defeat, knowing far well that Tiny would have ground him into jelly had he actually gotten a look at Ochako's breasts. Then again, that would be a pleasant last sight on the mortal coil, even if what followed shortly after was an excruciatingly painful death. 7. Taking his chances, believing that it would be the perfect last image for him to see, Mineta returns to the door of the bathroom. Rubbing his hands together and laughing pervertedly, he grabs the sliding handle to the door. Out of the corner of his eye, Kaminari sees Mineta try to open the door and nudges Kirishima's side to get his attention. The two watch as Mineta slides open the door to the bathroom. As he does so, Tiny is standing on the other side with his buff arms folded, looking down at the midget. Quick as a flash, Mineta slams the door before spinning around and pressing his back to it in an attempt to keep it closed. The two laugh at Mineta's misfortune before keeling over on the floor, laughing even harder when Mineta does it a second time, revealing Tiny in a different position and in his full samurai armor. 15. Dude, just quit while you're ahead. Tiny bro ain't letting you do that no matter how hard you try. Kirishima said this through laughter before falling to the floor. Not until I see those megablimp knockers Ochako-chan calls boobs. Mineta opens the door one final time to see Tiny and an army of foxes. He tries to shut the door before the bulky fox grabs the door for the army of foxes to surround him. Hee hee. Take it easy, man, it was only a joke. 2. A joke. I have warned you not to do what you had tried once. I blocked you a second time you attempted. Even a third time. To be entirely honest, you should have died the third time. The giant fox cracked his knuckles for Mineta to begin crying in a puddle of his own urine. Please don't kill me. In one swift kick, Mineta was punted across the dormitory and out the door before hitting a few trees. Miraculously, the pervert survived the assault. Dumb fox. Thinks he owns the place. He started to get up before seeing an army of eyes in unison growls. Looking around, he saw dozens of foxes surrounding him before attacking him like a scrap of meat. Somebody help me. The members of the dorms that were on the first floor that saw the airborne Mineta ran out to see the end result of the small pervert covered in claw marks and bites. To add insult to injury though, Kitsu lifted his leg up and peed on the grape boy's head before walking back inside with the others. 5. Fox biscuits are ready. Sato shouted for all the foxes to come over and sit patiently for their biscuits to be given to them. One for you, one for you, one for you, one for didn't I give you one already? 5. Arf, arf. Yaoyorozu went right over to Tiny with a larger biscuit for him. We made a larger one for you since you're larger fox. Why thank you. Tiny grabbed the biscuit to bite into it and smile. I like the flavor. 1. Good to hear. I was worried that it might not be as tasty since I wanted to also put in some nutrients that are good for foxes. And I respect that you put thought into that when making the biscuits. Crunch choo choo asterisk but they do taste very good. They continued talking until Ochako and Izuku came out in satisfaction of their bath. Ah, that felt refreshing. Ochako let out a sigh of happiness with Izuku having small red marks on his neck. This didn't go without notice by Ashido who made a confident smirk. So when should we be expecting a baby? This made Izuku go red before Ochako put a hand on her stomach. 1. 2 months about. 9 weeks to be more precise. Everyone stopped to look at her like there was a second head on the fox girl's shoulders. My pregnancy cycle is the same as a fox. And trust me when I say that I'm pushing for the first before the middle of the school year. 3. And I will be the happiest fox when I see my mistress holding the child of our next lineage of fox shrine maidens. Tiny walked over to the couch to sit down with several of the other foxes who had their treat and enjoyed the evening. Few hours later, the class of 1A began to sit at the table in hopes to have a decent dinner together. As they did, Ochako decided to sit on Izuku's lap enjoying her time together with her husband. This unfortunately made Iida lecture them on the act to the point it was a tad irritable to everyone before Tiny told him to sit down since she wasn't doing anything wrong. Meanwhile, Kitsu was beside them enjoying his own dinner served to him in his bowl until a certain ash blonde came and stepped in it accidentally. What the fuck? WHO put this crappy shit here. Kitsu looked at his food with a sad face knowing it was now sullied with Bakugo's foot. The ash blonde looked down at the small fox for him to run and jump into Ochako's arms to hide his head. Kachan, be nice. Kitsu didn't do anything to you and it's not his fault that you didn't see his bowl behind us. 1. What was that nerd? Bakugo glared at Izuku for him to stiffen up at his comment. You think you're better than me just because you've got some bitch sitting on your lap and giving your dick a spitshine. 5. That wasn't what I was meaning. Izuku was cut off by Bakugo slamming his hand on Izuku and Ochako's food to blow it up in some of the table. If you think you're so fucking tough to talk back to me, then prove it outside you little shit. 3. Ochako took a paper towel to wipe the residue of food off her face before getting up off Izuku. She then pulled her fingers up with a death glare at Bakugo. Clearly you don't know where you stand, Bakugo. She snapped her fingers for thousands of foxes to come glaring at Bakugo. Some were different colors and others were of unique sizes or shapes. These are the foxes that will serve the house of Inari that Izuku controls if ever summoned. If they were to be told by me or Izuku to kill someone, they'd be ripped to bits. Bakugo looked around to see the sheer magnitude of foxes that had their teeth out and growling at him. Be big fucking deal, I'll take all of you on. Many of the class were split between thinking he was either insane, or just stupid to do something like that. 4. Foxes. Ochako spoke in a low tone prepared to kill the ash blonde. Attack. One after the other, the foxes charged Bakugo to maul him before making a giant ball of them to roll outside. Everyone was silent as they heard their classmates' screams in pain until a painful silence came over. They looked to see the fox horde coming back to smile at Ochako and Izuku. Good foxes. Immediately, the fox girl's cheerful attitude came back to startle everyone. He didn't die, right? Izuku asked while looking outside. He saw Bakugo pull himself back into the dorms in a state that was too disturbing for even the authors to say, and to make things simple to understand was just not pleasant to imagine. 5. Deku. Izuku ran to his best friend as he was barely conscious. I fucking hate you. He passed out at this, for most to almost be impressed that out of all the words Bakugo could say to Izuku, he chose pick words that emphasized his own dislike of their green-haired classmate. 5. He's out now, not as in dead, right? Kirishima asked for Izuku to feel for a pulse. Alive, but probably very battered. The foxes then circled around Izuku waiting for his order. Could you guys bring Kachan over to his room and help make sure he doesn't die? They understood for some to take a first aid kit while others went to pick the explosive teen up to carry him up the stairs. The class followed to see the foxes tackle down the door and break it open, put Bakugo on his bed, tend to him, and finally put him under his covers. Maybe I should have asked Tiny to open the door a bit more subtle. The foxes came back over to sit in front of Izuku waiting for another order for everyone to be amazed. Nicely done everyone. You can all go back home since me and Izuku made our point clear thanks to all of you. Say hi to my parents for me when you get back to the shrine. Ochako snapped her fingers for each fox to go away in a puff of smoke. To be entirely honest, everyone now knew that Ochako wasn't the woman you wanted to mess with and made it a personal goal to not anger her or do something cruel to her or Izuku. If they did, they'd see the side of foxes that they aren't seeing right now. As the weekend came to an end, the class of 1A had returned to school. Meanwhile, however, Ochako had come into a deep thought as to why she had not been with Child yet. She began to walk down the halls of UA trying to understand this. Though her and Izuku tried to hold some moderation, it wasn't as if they weren't regularly doing it. In the time of the weekend, they've easily done it over 5 times in a single day, give or take a few rounds that weren't exactly finishing up inside her. 5. I know I've been doing everything right as far as I can tell. I've been satisfying Izuku, I'm satisfied, and I'm literally filled to the brim regularly and keep it there for the purpose of trying to let my body be fertilized. So why am I not with Child yet? She kept thinking of this with Izuku trying to cheer up his wife in any possible means he knew. Could it be that Izuku doesn't want to have a child yet? Perhaps that might be the case. For House Inari to have children, both mother and father need to want to have an heir. She thinks to herself, I'll have to ask him when we're alone. 3. As they walked, the sound of a rather annoying and arrogant person came behind them. Well, if it isn't the scum of Class A. They looked behind to see a person with blonde hair and what looked like a rather self-centered image in front of them. 3. 5. He however walked towards Ochako for some reason and began speaking. If I would have known that Class A had someone worth my time in it, I would have suggested a transfer of you with one of our less competent members. But the likes of you shouldn't be around the swine that is beside you. He started laughing for Izuku to have a bit of an irritated look on him. Ochako held her hand out, however, saying she was going to handle this. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Mr. Monoma. Nito Monoma. Monoma. But unfortunately for you, I'm already married to this man and nothing will change that. Ochako said this while happily hugging Izuku for him to blush. How shameful it must be. A woman of your caliber being married to a man such as this. I wonder if he can even be called a man. Oh. Monoma stopped when a fox decided to bite his ass and growl at him. Where did this mangy mutt come from? 6. The fox ran over to Izuku and stood on its hind legs trying to get him to pick it up. Seems the foxes that are under Goddess Inari aren't too fond of you, and I am even less so. Consider this a warning from a divine being. Do not attempt to anger us again. The two turned around to try and leave before the blonde decided to grab Ochako's wrist. Hold it right there. They turned around to see Monoma being rather agitated. Nobody makes a mockery of me and gets away with it. 2. In retaliation, Izuku grabbed the blonde's wrist and activated OFA to force him to let go of Ochako. Let me make one thing clear to you, Monoma. You even dare touch my wife and future mother of my children like that again. Izuku glared at him with sheer anger and aggression prominent before speaking. You're a dead man. He threatens crushing down on his wrist, causing the bones to crack and splinter audibly. Before a fight could start between the two, an orange-haired woman came over to karate chop Monoma's neck and knock him out. "Do you have a death wish or something?" The girl looked back to Izuku and Ochako for her to apologize and bow. "I am so sorry about my classmate. He doesn't know when to stop even when we tell him it isn't worth it and will just blow up in his face." 2:14. It's okay. A little bit of the reason a fight was about to start was kinda on my end though. Sorry that I broke his wrist, but he was trying to start a fight. Izuku says with a bit of an awkward laugh. Well, he says fight, but it would have been more him flailing angrily. Ochako adds in. 8. Not a problem. I don't take any issue with it, mainly because he was sorta starting it and tried to pick up a. The girl stopped before continuing. My name's Kendo, by the way. Mine's Izuku Midoriya. Nice to meet you. And I'm Ochako Midoriya, Izuku's wife. So that comment wasn't a lie. Both shook their heads no for Kendo to look down at Monoma, annoyed even more. You're lucky this didn't go any farther than it did, or you might have really caused problems. Anyway, nice meeting you and sorry about my classmate. The three parted ways with Ochako looking at Izuku. Hey Izuku, when you said, mother of your children, do you think of me as in a few years or more in the near future? Izuku blushed at this and was having difficulties responding. Well, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have kids later in life, but it is what it is if we have them earlier. Izuku didn't want to admit it, but the image of him and Ochako having their first baby has come across his mind in the more recent future, with the fact they haven't had a pregnancy scare yet kinda surprising him. Both, however, kept the thought of this to themselves and continued into the classroom where they'd prepare for their school day. 7. Time skip to the afternoon. 2. As the group of 1A began heading out for a field trip on the bus, their class representative Iida tried to make them all sit in order of their seats. This sadly became a failure on his end, with the seats being different and more as a city bus. Since it didn't really matter anymore where they sat, Ochako sat near Izuku, with some foxes finding their way out from under the seats to hang around the class. Seriously, do these foxes just come out for fanservice or something? Hiroshima asks, with one of the foxes going into his hair and looking down at him with a smile. 6. I can summon them whenever, or they can come out when I really don't have anything against them doing so. They may be able to come out by my will, but they still have a mind of their own. A white fox came over to sit on Ochako's lap to show its underside to her and gain a belly rub. Whatever. These things are nothing but a bunch of flea bags. OWW. Bakugo felt one of the foxes bite his ear, with a few more glaring at him with teeth shown. Seems they don't like Bakugo that much. Ribbit. To be fair, it takes a special touch to like Kachin. Izuku clarified this with two foxes sitting on his lap and a third being in his hair. So Ochako, when's the first baby gonna come? I wanna see what yours and Mido's baby looks like. Ashido says this in a happy tone, with some of the foxes playing around her. Soon, hopefully. I want to have one, but maybe Inari doesn't wish me to have one yet. Could be that Midoriya's impotent. Oof. Kaminari was hit in the stomach by Jiro, who kept him from finishing that comment. One by one, some of the foxes began headbutting his stomach as a way to mimic the ox cord quirk users act to make everyone laugh. 2. Don't think it's that. Lady Inari wouldn't let a sterile man be the next head if that was the case, and the foxes around us would have killed him by now. Everyone stopped laughing at this, realizing their class cinnamon roll would have been killed if Kaminari's comment actually was the case. 8. We're here, get off. Aizawa spoke up as the doors of the bus opened up for the pack of foxes to come off and circle around the Pro Hero 13 along with the members of the class. Once done, the Space Hero explained what they were doing here, with him saying they were practicing rescue training. They continued to discuss this before heading inside to notice some lights flickering. As the electricity went slightly haywire, a portal opened up in the center of the facility for an army of villains to show up. 10. Cool. They even have fake villains here. Hiroshima stated this with all the foxes on high alert due to their animal senses, saying this wasn't training. Those aren't fake villains. They're the real deal. Aizawa started jumping down, preparing to fight with the small army of foxes running down to help. This isn't good. Ochako, can you call Tiny He? Izuku tried to talk before seeing a giant beast with blackish-purple skin, a bird beak, and its brain on display jumping over to try and punch the brunette. Get back! Izuku was able to jump and take Ochako out of the way at the cost of his legs being broken for them to see the monster. Izuku, say something. Izuku grunted in pain as Ochako noticed her husband's legs broken. He willingly hurt himself just to pull her out of the way. You bastard! Ochako got up on her feet to look at the monstrous beast with cold dead eyes. You had the audacity to strike a woman, nearly cause severe damage to her, force her husband to hurt himself so she wouldn't and look at me without any form of apology. The beast didn't understand her from what anyone could see. It pulled its fist back again before Ochako used her tails as a fist to send the giant beast back into the center area of the USJ. 8. Ochako. The girls looked at their friend before she spoke up. Iida, get out of here and find the teachers. Girls, can you protect Izuku? Oh okay, but what are you going to do? Yaoyorozu asked in fear of what just happened. They want a fight. I'm giving them a fight. Ochako punched her hand in anger before shouting. The only one that has the right to make my husband's legs go numb like that is me. 96. Ochako walked down the steps with a blue-haired man covered in hands smiling at her. I guess we have a new player. Nomu, kill her. The beast known as Nomu charged at Ochako with her summoning blue flames inside her hand. Incinerate. She sent the flames directly at the beast before it connected to burn the beast. It screamed in pain before the flames began to die down to show the burnt body of what it was. Guess you weren't as tough as I thought. 1. Don't think this is game over yet, girl. Nomu has the ability to regenerate. It'll take more than that to take him down. The beast's body started to restore itself before standing back up like it was nothing. Figured. Tiny. Ochako called for the large fox with him showing up beside her. 6. What is it you wish for, my lady? Ochako pointed at the monstrosity and the man with blue hair. These two wanted to attack and hurt me with Izuku getting hurt instead. Teach them why you never cross the Inari. Tiny nodded before running towards the two. 4. You think some dumb fox is going to help? Nomu. Kill the steroid fox. Nomu came charging at Tiny with both holding the other back through locking their hands. The giant fox smirks before vanishing in a cloud of red and white smoke. The Nomu looks around with its chameleon-like eyes before a new cloud appears and Tiny comes out of it. Donned in his full samurai armor and wielding a 7-foot nodashi and bringing down a cleaving strike at the Nomu. In an instant the Nomu is bisected vertically before falling in half. Tiny takes the giant sword and points it at another villain that had tried to attack him from behind, and with a slash faster than the eye can see, the villain was disarmed below the elbow. 12. A thunderous blow from the Nomu collides with the armor that Tiny is wearing, sending him several feet back. Tiny smirks before taking his thumb and wiping a small amount of blood that had trickled from his mouth off his fur. Actually felt that one, he comments before sheathing the sword and charging the Nomu. Both titans clash with one another in a barrage of fists, every punch being sent by the Nomu at Tiny is expertly blocked and countered with a punch to its joints and exposed brain. Blocking with both arms, he breaks through the guard of the Nomu before and lands a hammer strike to the creature's brain. Lunging back, he grabs the handle of the nodashi across his back before a light gleams from his left eye. The others only saw him touch the handle of the sword before the Nomu was reduced to the contents of a meat pie. Tiny turns to face the other villains that were looking on in shock at the Titan Fox, some of them smart enough to run away, others stood being paralyzed with fear, and the foolish ones actually attempt to use their quirks on him. In a similar move, Tiny pulls the sword out of the sheath to expose the blade only an inch before resheathing it. Each of the goons that were dumb enough to try to use their quirks had their costumes shredded by 1,000 cuts, leaving them only in their skivvies as a warning. 11. Pulling the entire blade back out from its sheath, Tiny points the blade at the villain leader before the nodashi is emblazoned with red and white fox fire. The Nomu, having regenerated from his mincemeat form, attempts to grapple the Titan Fox. As if day had turned into night for a moment, a bright slash cuts through the darkness, revealing Tiny standing several meters away from the Nomu. The creature's hands lurch up towards its neck as its head is relieved from its shoulders and disintegrated by the fox fire, leaving the Nomu a bleeding headless corpse. Punk ass bitch, Tiny says before flicking the blood and flames from his sword and sheathing it. 13. Yeah, go Tiny, you showed him. Ochako jumped up and cheered with many of the other members of the class cheering as well. As they cheered, the blue-haired man began to scratch his neck rather angrily. He cheated, him and that bitch. The man looked around in anger before looking upon Ochako. Well, if the fox isn't going to be a success, then I guess the girl is the next best thing. He charged at Ochako with Tiny trying to stop him. This was prevented however by a man that was made entirely of mist coming at him and keeping the giant fox from coming to his mistress's aid. Young mistress. Ochako noticed the man running at her to prepare a countermeasure. She started to activate her foxfire before noticing a green blur come towards her with 3 broken limbs and another arm pulled back prepared to attack. Don't you dare touch my wife. Izuku was coming towards them before the doors to the USJ broke open to reveal a clearly angry All Might. Have no fear, for I am here. The villains looked up at the pro realizing their trump card wasn't there anymore to panic. 5. Shigaraki sir, we must leave. Guess it's game over for now. But don't think this is the end of this. We'll be back for you All Might. And your little brats too. The 2 villains left through a portal of black mist with All Might and Aizawa cleaning up the rest of the villains. 3. As this happened, Ochako looked down on Izuku to see him struggling to remain conscious. Izuku, I'm sorry you did this for me. It's okay Ochako. You're okay, right? She nodded before holding her hands out over Izuku. She began using her healing factor of her quirk for Izuku's body to heal itself rather quickly. Though he wasn't conscious anymore, the worst of his injuries were healed with nothing medically wrong with him anymore. Ochako however was about to pass out from exhaustion with Tiny coming over to hold the 2 on his back. Forgive me for not being there to help you my lady. As a way to atone for this, I shall carry you 2 back to the dorms myself. Ochako smiled as she was losing consciousness before speaking up. Best boy. The day after the attack on the USJ came with everyone involved in the incident getting the day off to come to terms with what had happened. Though they were planned to face villains in the future, nobody had planned for the class of 1A to face them so early in their hero career. Fortunately for the school, Izuku was the only one that actually got hurt, with it being predominantly due to him injuring himself saving Ochako. This though didn't sit right with the fox brunette. Whether he liked to believe it or not, Izuku was someone that Ochako loved and wants to be with for the rest of her life. So when he willingly puts himself in harm's way just to save her, reality sets in about the world they'll be living in soon. They could die at any moment and the chances of them surviving aren't always high. This scared Ochako as the person she finally obtained as her husband could die at any moment just because he was doing his job. She didn't want this to be the end of Izuku. At least, without having something for her to remember him by. 2. The members of Class A were sitting in the common area coming to terms with what happened within the last 24 hours. Some took it rather well, others were still kinda shaken up. Dude, we showed those villains who's boss yesterday. Kaminari seemed to boast even though most of the class did next to nothing. 14. Oh, so screaming and saying, I don't wanna die. Is part of your thought that we showed them who's boss? Jiru stated this for the electric quirk user to freeze in his tracks. To be honest, most of us had done next to nothing. The only people that had really done anything were Midoriya, Ochako, and Iida. Yaoyorozu said as she recalled the most she did was just watch Izuku and keep him from getting hurt after Ochako asked her and the other girls to do so. Speaking of Ochako, where is she? Ashido asked while looking over to see Izuku making 2 sandwiches. She's in her room. Apparently, she felt really bad that Midoriya got hurt and is kinda taking it personally ribbit. To be honest, I don't blame her, Kirishima added, remembering what his classmate did. He saved his wife and willingly put his own life on the line just so she could make it. I doubt that anyone could have done it better than Midoriya. If anything, she is having a panic attack at the possibility that she could have lost him yesterday, and much like she also said yesterday, they're probably going to have a kid in 9 weeks. Ooh. I can't wait to see what a baby with Ochako's quirk and Mido's hair looks like, Hagakure says while the sleeves of her shirt began swinging around. Doubt Ua would allow them to stay though. Shiro does have a point. This is a school, so one of their students getting pregnant would be a really bad embarrassment for them even after what happened. Ojiro clarified this with everyone as they realized he was right.
Mr. Aizawa is fully aware of our situation as well as Principal Nezu. Since this is customary in Ochako's family as well as we're already married, there's no reason why us having a baby is technically going to bite us in the butt later. Izuku stated before walking upstairs with 2 toasted peanut butter sandwiches and some milk to wash it down to his and Ochako's bedroom. Walking up to the door, he knocked on it to get his wife's attention. "Ochako, I got us some sandwiches. I also have something for Kitsu if he wants it." The inside was silent as Izuku opened the door to see Ochako curled up in a ball near the head of the bed. Kitsu was beside her with his head down as if he did something wrong. "Ochako." Izuku went towards her face to pat the brunette's head. "I've got something to eat. I need you to keep your strength up, please." One Ochako looked at her husband before answering in a somewhat raspy voice. "Thank you." The two sat down on the bed with Kitsu bringing his small sandwich Izuku made for him down near the floor. A chilling silence came over them before Ochako finally spoke up. "I'm sorry." "What for?" the OFA user asked while taking another bite of his sandwich. "If I paid closer attention, maybe you didn't have to have your legs break. It's because of me that you were hurt as badly as you were." "Ochako. It wasn't your fault. If I didn't do what I did, you would have gotten much worse. I did what I did because I wanted to help you as both my wife and someone that needed saving." Izuku wrapped his hands around Ochako's while looking her into the eyes. "If I had a choice to do what I did again, I would have done the same to save you. I love you." He shot a bright smile at Ochako for her face to go red and her tails to wag a mile a minute. She was finding it hard to say anything back before placing the plate with her sandwich on the nightstand and picking Kitsu up. "Kitsu, can you go outside for a few hours and play with our classmates? Your mommy has something very important to do with her husband." The fox barked in agreeing before being placed outside the door to run downstairs. 2. Ochako? You okay?" Izuku asked as the brunette shut the door and locked it before turning to Izuku. "I'm getting a baby in me today, Izuku. We both want one and today we'll make one for sure. So you better be ready, because I won't hold back today until we've accomplished this." Izuku went pale knowing this wasn't going to be an easy day for him. Few hours later Izuku woke up to the feeling of something soft and moist on his lower self. He got up to notice what was going on to smile. Ochako was cleaning him off after their ordeal in her sleep. "More Izuku. Make me a mommy." She spoke in his sleep for the OFA user to smile. He placed his hand on her head before looking at the mess he made. "I may have overdone it a bit." His head went to Ochako's face who was as happy as anything. "I'll face the music in a little bit. Right now I'm too tired and I don't think Ochakao's going to wake up anytime soon." Izuku laid on his back before smiling. "I wonder what our baby is going to look like." The next day had come with Ochako waking up to an uneasy feeling in her stomach. She decided to put on something before walking towards the door. "Oh dear. I'm going to throw up." She immediately darted out of the room and downstairs towards the bathroom where she had thrown up for some reason. When she finished, Ochako walked out to see Ishido and Yaoyorozu. 2. You okay, Ochako? You seem to be feeling a little under the weather. The dark-haired woman gave Ochako a towel to wipe her face off before she smiled. "Don't worry, it seems that I might be pregnant." "What?" Both shouted for Ochako to smile even wider. "Why do you immediately think like that? Did you feel morning sickness before this?" Yaoyorozu asked with confusion. "We had sex last night and let's just say, I'm not surprised if I am." 2. But wouldn't it take some time or something? You don't just wake up early one morning after having sex and you just immediately get morning sickness. Our anatomies are completely different, Mina. You see, my reproductive system is like that of a fox's. So where you would have a child in you 9 months before it would be born, I would have it in me for 9 weeks. So one day would be worth more than enough for me to see results." That's amazing. I honestly had thought Tiny had said what you did with him, meaning you two will be expecting in 9 months, not you will have a child in 9 weeks. Yaoyorozu couldn't put words to what she had discovered before some more of their classmates came into the restroom to begin the day. "What's all the commotion in here?" Juru, Sue and Toru walked in to notice everyone around Ochako. "So did Midoriya do something that you wanted to say?" Actually Juru, I'm probably pregnant," Ochako said with a smile for Sue to ask a question. "Is your anatomy like that of an animal's?" "Yup. Makes sense. Why are you so calm about this?" The girls shouted in amazement at their frog friend. My genetics are the same. A good amount of people with animal-type mutation quirks are able to hold strong genetics like that. Mine also have it where I can hibernate during the winter if I'm too cold. Nobody questioned to continue getting ready for the day. Ochako decided to go back to her room to grab some clothes and bathe before school, mainly due to the events of the night prior. 14 times skip to lunch. Izuku and Ochako had stood on line with the brunette having more of a bubbly personality than normal. Her husband took note of this for it to bring a smile to his face. This unfortunately came to an end by a certain blonde man who dared ruin the moment by hitting Izuku's head with a tray. Oh, I'm so sorry. I guess it's hard to get over that ridiculous head of yours. Ahahaha. Monoma laughed at this with Izuku brushing it off as nothing. Ochako on the other hand felt the urge to slap the egoist blonde across the face to the point she had to talk herself down. He's not worth it, Ochako. Just be confident you have the last laugh with Izuku being more of a man than he is. She made a smirk before thinking of something else. Chances are this guy will only get a girlfriend if he pays someone to be. Monoma noticed Ochako's smile to take it the wrong way. It seems even your wife knows how much of scum you are to know when you're outclassed. The blonde was stopped by a tail to his groin, courtesy of Ochako. I thought you were going to try and keep peaceful negotiations with people from Class B? Couldn't do it. At least with this guy. Monoma fell to his knees for the fox brunette to look down at him. Let's get this straight, Monoma. No matter what you say or do, you'll never be half the man Izuku is. If you want proof, he's already implanted his seed in me to make me an expecting mother. 13. There was a silence in the room before Izuku collapsed from hearing this. Those who listened in went completely silent, realizing what was said before a group. What was said? 4. So. The pathetic Class A had knocked up one of their own. I wonder if that baby is really high. Izuku woke up to punch Monoma in the face. The resulting impact created a strikingly similar air pressure wave that All Might creates. This sends Monoma to the other end of the cafeteria, straight through the reinforced concrete walls into the 6-story plummet to the ground. 15. Thank you. Kendo came over prepared to stop her classmate's antics only to see him get a taste of his own medicine. Sorry about him. I really try to stop him, but he never listens. 2. Sad part is, he probably won't learn from this. Ochako said, clearly annoyed. That is, if he survived the fall. 1. So is that true what you said? You're were going to be. Izuku said on the verge of tears for Ochako to nod. He immediately pulled her into a hug to cry into her chest with the brunette to smile and rub his head in a caring manner. Wait, but how do you know? 1. Fox Anatomy. I had morning sickness this morning. Nobody could say a word as this was beyond astounding to hear. What are you thinking, Izuku? What am I thinking? This is amazing. I'm gonna be a dad. He exclaims before picking up his taller wife and spinning her around, pressing his forehead against her chest as tears of joy run down his face. 1. Isn't that sweet? Kendo walked away to try and find her catapulted classmate to discover him in a dumpster outside still breathing. Well, that's at least a positive for him. 4. Did anyone notice that Midori didn't hurt himself when he punched Monoma? Ashido asked as several stopped to realize the damage done was far past what he normally shows with his quirk. Maybe Ochako's his way to control it. Jiru silently laughed before the girls went to eat at their table. 7. After school, the group of Class A had sat in the common space figuring out what they were to do for the sports festival coming up that they were told of earlier in the day. While they did, Ochako sat happily on Izuku's lap, snuggling close up to him with Kitsu sitting to the side of them on his back. Hard to believe Midori is gonna be a dad, Shiro commented with several somewhat amazed as well. Well, that thing Tiny said was actually meaning a literal term of her having a kid in 9 weeks. So get ready to see a baby Mido in the next 2 months. Ashido shouted for joy with the guys realizing this. Oh please. The kid's probably gonna be a loser like its loser father. Bakugo obtained a head slam to the coffee table by Tiny behind him for his comment. 5. How dare you insult the new young mistress in front of me? He was enraged to say it simply. Nobody would willingly anger the giant fox who looked like he could eat a truck if he wanted. However, they somewhat had some satisfaction seeing Bakugo act this way since he was that much of an idiot to try his luck with the giant fox. Wait, why do you think it's gonna be a girl, Tiny bro? Because Kirishima. The first child born to the Inari family is always a female. This is so she may become the shrine maiden and we can continue the legacy in which we hold. The second is always male to uphold the samurai clan's tradition in house name. Since Lady Ochako is an only child, the surname has changed to Midoriya from Uraraka. 2. Dang, Midoriya's gonna do tea parties with his little girl. Kaminari laughed a bit before having an aux cord in his ear by Jiro. 11. At least we know what to get Ochako when she gets near her due date. Hagakure said this while Todoroki walked up to Izuku. Take care of your child. Do not mistreat her or your wife. That is all I want you to do. This cryptic message confused everyone as he walked upstairs with a bowl of soba in his hands. 15. So now let's try and think of what your baby will look like with that out of the way. Ashido said with a smile before Tiny intervened. She will have 7 tails. Each female member of the house has an odd number of tails increasing from 1 to 9. When a 9 tails has a daughter, the daughter starts over the cycle at 1. Male children will always have an even number of tails and can have up to 10 before resetting. As for what she will look like, why don't I just show you? I can do more things than just take out the trash, you know. Tiny says, getting a couple of them to laugh hearing this. He created a small smoke image from his mouth for it to take the form of a little girl possessing Izuku's hair and eyes, with Ochagao's blush and facial features. 7 fluffy emerald green tails with white color points bounce around, swishing back and forth. Ah, that's so adorable. I want to just squeeze her. Ashido and Hagakure admired the picture of the future child of Izuku and Ochako, with the rest of the girls and some of the guys feeling happy seeing it. Meanwhile, Mineta was silently cursing Izuku for being able to not only have a wife, but also going to have a baby on the way, to indicate he had to do the deed with her recently. Stupid jerk. I hope your crotch falls off and gets eaten by those monsters you call foxes that hang out around you. I hate you, you stupid jerk. No girl looks my way, so why do guys like you get all the glory? Mineta stopped when he looked behind him to see Kitsu biting his ass with a growl to him. That's not a chew toy. 9. Kitsu. Spit that out this instant. You know that you'll have horrible stomach issues if you eat midget meat. Tiny said this for everyone to look at him. Happens to me. I'm gonna pretend I didn't hear that, Izuku said, pinching the bridge of his nose with Ochako speaking up. I'm not. How do you know that? 1. I may have eaten a would-be thief that tried to steal a family heirloom from the temple. I had to go to a vet, then a doctor, then a vet specialist, and finally a veterinary surgeon. They said my stomach cannot handle the chemicals that are not present in people that have stifling growth issues and that I must refrain from eating them if possible. 5. I don't think Mineta needed to know you've eaten someone before, Kirishima says for the small midget panicking in a corner. 1. Look at my face. Does it seem like I care all that much? 16. Good point. Izuku had gotten up with Ochako in his arms to start heading towards the kitchen. I'm gonna start something for dinner. Do you feel like anything specific, Ochako? The brunette thought before smiling. As long as it's your food, I'm happy with it. I don't think I have to worry about food cravings for at least a few days or a week or two. The two continued into the kitchen while Tiny tried to release Kitsu, who was still biting Mineta for his comment for the small pervert's butt to never be the same again. 2. So Midoriya is going to have a child. I wonder what the school will do as a countermeasure towards this. We're going to allow it but keep Uraraka from doing things that will cause problems. It's only for 3 months max. I don't think she'll be in that many issues in regards to this, but we'll keep a watch over her. Aizawa stated this while walking into the common space to answer Ida's question. 4. So they won't get into trouble? Kaminari asked for Aizawa to pinch the bridge of his nose. Would rather not deal with this, but it isn't my call. You're all young adults here, so you all need to act with care and concern for your own well-beings. Also, I really don't care if you do it as long as you think things through beforehand. 8. Then why the fuck are you letting Deku and his slutty wife screw for a bra? Tiny slammed Bakugo's head into the wooden coffee table, due to the comments he was making for it to begin getting old for the giant fox. 6. They're married. They're old enough to know right and wrong, so I don't care. The tired teacher pulled out an applesauce packet to suck it up before handing something to Yaoyorozu. Make sure you give this to Uraraka. It's so she can have an ultrasound and what she should do now that we're in this situation. Yaoyorozu nodded while taking the set of papers before Aizawa walked out. As he left, A small set of foxes led him outside and sat down in the front to watch him leave. For the most part, everyone was just surprised that this happened. However, the reality was apparent that they'll have one of their classmates expect a baby within 9 weeks from now. 2 weeks had gone like the blink of an eye, with Ochako's pregnancy coming along rather well. The morning after their little schwer, she already had the symptoms of early pregnancy, and by that, I mean she accidentally ripped the door to the bathroom off the wall to go throw up in the toilet. Fortunately, nobody was inside, but it was still rather uneasy knowing how intense she could be. Right now was the day after the sports festival. As a whole, most of Class A had made it to the last round, with only a small handful of Class B and the other courses had made it. Izuku was able to succeed in beating Bakugo, who he faced in the first round, making him angered beyond belief. He unfortunately did lose to Todoroki in the next round, but helped him be more open to using his quirk. This, however, didn't mean much against the winner. A general studies student, secret love child of Aizawa, by the name of Hitoshi Shinso, who was looked at very favorably to the point he has replaced Mineta in the Class 1A roster. This, however, would happen at the end of the semester, so the group would have to deal with his perverse antics for a little longer. Hitoshi felt on top of the world and had even been smitten with a certain silver-haired girl in 1B shortly after the festival. Izuku preemptively greeted him and congratulated him on his win, with Ochako welcoming the purple-haired secret love child into 1A. 18 right now, the group was in the common space with Izuku rubbing Ochako's belly in a loving manner. "You really took to being a future father rather well," Ashido said while watching Ochako smile with her tails wagging at this. "I guess. I feel like I still have a long way to go before being a good father." "I think you're trying your best, Izuku. I dare even say that baby in Lady Ochako's womb would be honored to have a father such as you." Tiny said this while reading his book, War and Peace. "TCH. I could still be a better father than that loser." Bakugo scoffed with a bandage on his nose from when Izuku punched him in the face. Too bad it'll be hard for you to find a girl that'll sleep with you. With your attitude, Mineta will have an easier time getting laid than you will," Ochako said while biting Izuku's ear in a happy manner. 22. "What did you say, you fucking pregnant bit?" Bakugo was cut off by a tail smack to the side of the head to shut him up. "Oh look, even Ochako can kick Bakugo's butt. Truly tragic that you can't beat either of them. What's next, their baby kicking your ass?" Jiru snickered to herself for the ash blonde to begin to fuming with absolute rage. 11. Somebody stop these crazy things," Mineta screamed, coming down from the girl's side with an army of foxes coming after him, with Kitsu leading the charge. 2. "That's what you get for snooping around here. Dumbass. Why do we have to wait till the end of the semester to get rid of that grape-scented dead weight anyways?" Toru hisses towards Mineta, who is currently being mauled by the foxes. "Frankly, even I'm surprised he hasn't died yet." Tiny had turned a page and drank a bit of his tea he prepared before speaking. "I believe he was trying to go into your room. I had asked Kitsu to watch over it while you both were down here. Seems he somewhat has obtained what fate had offered him." Tiny glanced up to watch the foxes carry Mineta off to wherever they do, with him crying for them to let him go. Eventually, the sound of a knock at the door was heard for Yaoyorozu to stand up. "I'll get it." She walked over to open the door to Ochako's and Izuku's parents behind Aizawa. "Yaoyorozu, are the Midoriyas in the common space?" "Yes, sir. But who are these three?" Izuku and Ochako looked over to the door to notice their faces growing smiles. "Hey Mom. Mom. Dad. Izuku sweetie. I saw you on TV. You were amazing." Inko came in to hug her son and daughter-in-law before noticing where Izuku's hand was on Ochako. "Izuku, I need to ask this as your mother. Did you get Ochako pregnant?" "My response entirely depends on if you will be angry if I say yes." 4. "No, I'm going to be extremely happy if you did." "Then yes, we're expecting a girl." The Urarakas came in to hug their daughter as well as pat Izuku on the back in congratulations, while everyone looked upon the towering woman unsure what was happening. "I guess a bit of introduction is in order." The three bowed before saying who they were. "My name is Tusa Uraraka. It's an honor to meet my daughter's classmates." "Great, another fucking gargantuan woman with a fucking fox here." Bakugo was cut off again by a massive naginata cutting the couch he is on in half. Everyone turned to see Tusa with the blade in her hands, causing them to go pale. "I'm sorry. Where are my manners? It appears that my hand had slipped. Now would you mind politely telling me who you were, young man? It's rather rude to address a lady of nobility, no less, as something like that. 7. Guess this is where she gets her attitude for etiquette and sadistic nature from. Everyone thought this as Tusa put the massive blade in her kimono as if it disappeared. Oh yeah, TLDR, she can pull any weapon out of nowhere. I don't even know where she gets them from. Ochako says nonchalantly, shrine maidens are also warrior brides, she taught me everything I know. Just what is your family, Yakuza? Everyone shouted in fear of the answer. 5. Oh, young ones, we're samurai, not some dishonorable backalley hoodlums. Speaking of, I believe I now know where they picked up that platinum blonde fellow from. She says, causing Todoroki to spit, take his tea and start laughing and coughing. 5. So late, introductions aside. The two on my right are my parents. We own a shrine in the forest where we live. My mom's a shrine caretaker like me and my dad is a college professor. The woman over here is my mother and works at a local clinic near our house. Todoroki walked up to Inko with a calm expression. It's nice to meet you, ma'am. Thank you. I hope you're a nice friend to my Izuku. Inko was a little uneasy as the young teenager wasn't anything she'd expect from how he's acted up to now from what she's seen. Wait, so why are both of your parents here? Kirishima asked, with Ochako's father getting the chance to speak. We were told by Principal Nexu that there was a reason Ochako didn't participate in the sports festival this year and that we'd understand when we'd get her to see. I honestly didn't expect it to have anything to do with her having a baby, but I couldn't be happier as her father to see my baby girl happy. He let a small tear out while hugging Ochako again for her to enjoy the affection from her family. So how far along are you, sweetheart? Inko asked for the fox girl to answer. If I remember correctly, I'm close to the 3-week mark. Would you like to feel your grandbaby, Mom? I don't understand. Ochako placed Inko's hand on her stomach for her to feel the bump on her. Wait, how are you showing signs? Our pregnancies are more similar to Fox's, Mrs. Midoriya. So she's closer to about 3 months at the moment. For us to come to term with a baby, it's only about 9 weeks or so, Tusa said to make Inko smile a bit. That makes me even more excited. That means I can see my grandbaby sooner. Everyone smiled before seeing Mineta come in mauled with Kitsu still biting his head. I think I need. Blow. He couldn't even finish before collapsing to the ground in pain. Kitsu then noticed Inko to let go and run towards her to try jumping into her arms. Seems somebody missed you, Izuku said, looking at his mother pick up the small fox and smile. Hello, Kitsu. I hope you've been a good beau. Oh my god, it's a giant fox, Inko says while seeing Tiny reading a book. 6. He places his book away before getting up. Since this is our first formal meeting, it is an honor to meet the young master's side of the family. My name is Tiny, Mrs. Midoriya. I am sworn to the protection of the Uraraka family and now yours. The giant fox gave a bow to make everyone rather impressed with how noble he is. It's no big deal. It's nice to meet you, Mr. Tiny. Just Tiny is all right, ma'am. There is no need for formalities. Oh, okay, Tiny. Everyone laughed while the group began talking of the past behind Ochako and Izuku to understand how Tiny obtained his name. 1. Mind explaining how you got the name Tiny? When I was little and raising Tiny, he was a cute boy that was a runt of the litter for his family. Kinda like Kitsu. So as such, I named him Tiny. I didn't know though that he had a quirk until one day I woke up to see Tiny not so tiny anymore. Not only is he very strong, he's extremely intelligent. He's scored an IQ of 190 on 3 different tests. He also has a taste for expensive teas and fine wines, especially rice wine, Ochako said while her parents showed pictures of Tiny's adolescence. 5. As hours passed with several foxes enjoying having the current heads in the room and sleeping on Todoroki's left side as he raised the temperature to a desired heat for them, the 3 unfortunately had to call it a day. 1. Goodbye, you two. Make sure you tell us when the baby is close to due, Tusa said with Izuku having a pat on the back from Maruki. Take care, Izuku. Also make sure to treat my daughter and your future baby with love and care. You can count on me, sir. Izuku smiled at the man for him to ruffle his hair. That's the way, kid. Spoken like a true man with convictions. I'll be sure to send you some nice scotch soon. The group left to have everyone begin heading back inside and notice the foxes relieving themselves on Minetta's still-breathing carcass that even the authors are questioning what it takes to kill this guy and half admire his resilience with the other half wanting him to just die to be done and over with him. 21. Your parents seem nice, you too, Juru said while smiling at the young married couple. Thanks. They answered in unison as they watched Tiny shovel Mineta into the bathroom so they wouldn't smell fox pee wherever he went. Still wish he'd be gone by now. You and me both, Ochako. At least he'll be gone soon so our baby doesn't deal with him, Izuku stated while Ochako placed his hand back on her belly to rub where the baby was. That reminds me, how will this work for you two? Yaoyorozu asks with the class one by one, realizing what she meant. I'm certain you both will try your best, but the first few months will be the most difficult for the both of you, especially with school. Izuku thought about this before looking at Ochako, who was still rather unfazed by this. It's okay, Yaomomo. Everything will work out in due time. We just need to take this one step at a time and try our best. Ochako said this before a gurgle was heard from her. She stopped to start running into the restroom to have herself throw up in the toilet. Bakugo eventually re-emerged from the top of the dorms seeing none of the parents. Good. No more fucking loser parents here. Do not insult Lord and Lady Inari in such a way. Tiny punched Bakugo so hard, a large thud was heard. He realized what he did to recompose himself. My apologies, I had lost my temper. 12. Nobody dared to fight him on this as they were once again reminded of how you should never piss off Tiny no matter what. As everyone returned to school in an attempt to have some form of normality back in their lives, the class was informed that they would be doing a work study with offers they had been given. For the ones that had not obtained any at all, there was a list of 40 respected agencies that were more than happy. Strangely enough, Ochako had obtained quite a few for some reason even though her appearance in the festival was brief with beating the crap out of Bakugo for trying to attack Izuku outside an event. She figured this was how she obtained the attention with Nezu agreeing to have her do the work study, but nothing too straining for the young fox mother to be. Speaking of beating Bakugo, the ash blonde along with Mineta are currently under Ochako's feet being beaten to a bloody pulp while some onlookers watch the show. 1. So what did they do today? Juru asks walking down the steps and noticing the beatdown that was almost a daily basis now. Mineta tried to steal Ochako's underwear and said something about at least wanting to live the fantasy of being with a pregnant woman or something. Izuku said calmly sipping a bit of rice sake compliments of Tiny. That's disgusting. 12. Everyone has their kinks, Juru. Not exactly proud my wife falls into his. The two watch as it seemed like Mineta's spine snapped in half with an unnerving crack being heard. But I can at least take satisfaction knowing this is as far as he got. Izuku continued sipping the rice alcohol with Iida noticing what he was drinking. Midoriya. It is unheroic to be drinking an alcoholic beverage underage. 3. This batch I have given the master is non-alcoholic upon his request. Tiny intervened to explain. He was somewhat curious of how this batch had come out since I had said the quality was rather superb due to the happiness of goddess Inari that her legacy is continuing. Mine on the other hand has alcohol. Tiny sipped from a sake cup with a bit of satisfaction watching the two that gave problems to his master and mistress getting what was coming to them. Okay. So Mineta was being well. Mineta. What did Bakugo do? Kirishima asked as he walked down to hear Mineta's reasoning to be beaten into the pile of ground meat he was at the moment. Kachin was walking in and was angered that Ochako was in his way. So as such, he said and I quote, "Get the fuck out of my way, pregnant slut, before I blast a hole where yours and that shitty loser's brat is or something like that." Then she promptly stabbed him in the stomach with a spoon. A plastic spoon. Deep enough that he had to be airlifted to the hospital. The EMT that picked him up said she did a pretty decent appendectomy with it too. Izuku took another sip of his sake, surprised everyone at his calmness. 24. I would expect you to be somewhat angrier. I mean as her husband and the father of the baby inside her, wouldn't you be the one going after Bakugo now? Yaoyorozu questioned in fear. He already flat-lined twice and Hatsume is brushing up on her necromancy for when he actually gets murdered by Ochako. There isn't anything I can do to him he doesn't already do to himself. I for one, expected her to carve his heart out with that plastic spoon. When I asked her why the spoon, guess what she said? 17. Everyone was silent with the fear of what the answer was. Because it'll hurt more. In that moment, a cold chill went down everyone's spine knowing the sadistic side to their foxy classmate. You know what, Tiny? I think I'll take the real stuff. I'm gonna need it. Izuku whispers to the giant fox, getting him to nod and refill his sake dish. 3. After the beatdown to notice the two were barely grasping for life, Ochako glared at Tiny. Mochi. And as much as you can give me. Tiny didn't ask questions to simply snap his hands to have a tray as large as the common space's coffee table brought in by foxes with several different kinds of mochi on the platter. I also want a 1-pound burger with tomatoes, pickles, 2 fried eggs, caramelized onions, grilled pineapple, bacon, sausage, pepperoni, and sauerkraut. Also a deep dish meat lovers with pickled eggs on it, pasta, chocolate ice cream, oh. And can you also put some anchovies and jalapenos on it? And when I say some jalapenos, a giant jar of pickled sweet jalapenos. Done. Tiny snapped his fingers again to have a bunch of foxes bring the items and put together the enormous setup and placed it on the tray. Would you like anything else, mistress? 3. This'll do for now. Thank you, Tiny. Ochako placed her hands together to give thanks for the food before going to town on the burger and eating it in an inhumane fashion. The members of the class were amazed and slightly disgusted at the same time. She can put it away, Kaminari said, amazed at what he's seeing. What I'm curious about is, where is she putting it all? Ashido asked while seeing Ochako shove about 24 mochi buns in her mouth and swallow them with a smile. 6. Usually her boobs and butt, though you don't see me complaining. Mineta said with a bit of a smile before having Kitsu pee on his face to add insult to injury. 4. To be entirely honest, I'm thinking she eats this much to counterbalance the short pregnancy cycle. You are correct, Yaoyorozu. The members of the Inari house must increase the nutrients in their bodies 3 times the standard amount they normally do in order to make certain their children grow properly when they are with child. Tiny states this while placing his sake down, feeling content with the amount he consumed and not inebriated enough where he can't enjoy the taste of it anymore. But didn't she already eat a lot to begin with before being pregnant? Ojiro asked with Hagakure beside him petting his tail. You are forgetting that. She's a giant standing almost 6.5 feet tall. She's barely shorter than All Might, for crying out loud. She also burns far more calories than we do since her quirk changes her physiology. She eats this much now because she is building a baby in 1/10 the time. Izuku sips from the sake and places it on the table with a bit of a blush on his face. 4. Ochako said that it's normal in her family for them to eat a lot. You should have seen the amount of rice she ate on our honeymoon as a midnight snack. It was a bowl larger than Mineta is tall. Geez, what the heck, man, Kirishima said, now beyond amazed. So that's where my Oreos went. Ashido shouts in amazement as her snacks were missing one morning waking up. I'm sorry if she ate them. If you want, I can pay for a new pack for you. Izuku bowed his head at the acid quirk user for her to brush it off. No worries. Besides, I've been kinda snacking on Bakugo's moon pies, so I'm not one to judge. I used the Oreos to make an Oreo milkshaker. 5. Ochako lifted the pizza the size of Tiny up in the air to begin shoving the thing in her mouth, almost as if it was a cartoon where the character would put a plate of something in their mouth and yank the plate out completely clean and with nothing left of the food on it. She then took the last of the mochi buns and walked to Izuku's lap where she ate them and cuddled into his body. I feel better now. 2. Glad to hear. Izuku started petting her ears to make her smile. Oh yeah, Iida. I saw what happened to Ingenium. If it means anything, you have my sympathies. Ochako said, looking at the engine quirk user for his, hold on. I know just the bastard who did this. Ochako. I'm going to march over and give that hero-killing piece of shit a piece of my mind. Ochako, no. Don't, Ochako, no, me. That bastard hurt my friend's brother and I'm not gonna stand for the fact he's still alive. Iida, are you going to at least help me here? Normally I do not condone murder, but in this case I believe it is justifiable. 5. We're not letting a pregnant woman fight a sword-wielding psychopath. 4. I already fought one who wields explosions. Some knockoff ninja ain't gonna scare me. Ochako declares in a huff before getting up from her spot and marching out the front door with Izuku clutching her coat tails trying to stop her. Passing Ochako and Izuku as they walk out is Hatsume, who is frantically running into the dorms. Quick! Where's the Necronomicon? Bakugo's dead and I got 10 minutes, Hatsume shouts as she bursts through the doors of the dorms. 18. First shelf, second row, left side on the end. Iida answers her. The pink-haired woman rushes to the bookshelf and pulls said book on it. The human skin-bound book with a face laughs evilly as it's removed from the shelf, but before anyone else could react, Hatsume ran back out the door. 10. So, it looks like that's Midoriya Ochako 1 and Bakugo Katsuki 0. Todoroki says with a slight smirk. More like Ochako 15, Bakugo 0. Hagakure corrected their friend, only for Hatsume to leave as quickly as she arrived, trying to bring him back from the dead. As this occurred, Ochako summoned a massive white fox with 2 tails that was large enough to carry both her and Izuku. Time to fly flutter. 4. I do not like where this is going, Izuku said as the two took off and flew across the air at insane speeds to make it to Hosu in a matter of seconds. There, they found the hero killer perched on the ledge of a rooftop for them to land behind him. 3. Let me be clear, I don't take mercy on children. But I do not enjoy killing them, so I'll let you live if you leave now. The villain did not turn to them with Ochako smirking. Good. 'Cause I want to make sure you see me as an enemy. Ochako continued to walk with Izuku planting his feet into the roof and having them grind into the roof, making a line at least 2 inches deep as he was dragged. Why are the authors making you so freakishly strong all of a sudden? I'm literally using my quirk as high as I can. 6. Ochako lifted her hand up and snapped her fingers for several foxes to come. This round, the foxes knew how to stand on their hind legs and use weapons. What the hell am I looking at? 13. The warriors of Inari. These foxes are capable of wielding weapons and are a higher class of foxes as opposed to the ones I normally summon. To make it simple, one of these foxes makes the others look like pups in a pack. Stain prepared for battle with a single fox coming at him first with katanas in his paws. It held his attention long enough for one with a chain to wrap around the hero killer's leg and have 2 others yank him downward. Above, another fox with a mace jumped up to attack his face. Fortunately, Stain dodged with the attack breaking the cement roofing. The heck am I looking at? Izuku didn't understand anything anymore as a fox breathed into a blow dart tube to hit Stain. He started hallucinating and had one with a naginata and another with a longsword stab Stain in the torso. He jumped away to see a fox with a staff begin swinging it around like he owned it. 3. Oh, this won't end well. Ow. He looked down to see a fox with brass knuckles and war paint on looking like he meant business. What the hell are these things? A fox came at Stain again with nunchucks to beat him down for the entire army of foxes to attack together and put an end to the hero killer and make amends to everyone that was harmed, killed by his hands. 5. All done. Thanks boys. The foxes saluted Ochako before poofing away. Let's go Izuku. I think Iida will sleep easier knowing the hero killer isn't causing any more problems. The OFA user didn't know what to say as he just witnessed actual weapon-wielding foxes take down someone that not even pros could. Yeah. I'm right behind you. He got on flutter while making a mental note to run if he ever sees foxes with swords and nunchucks come after him. Well, that was interesting. Is he dead? Probably. Might as well turn what's left of him in before the crows get to him. The duo returned to Ua with Aizawa waiting for them. He was surprised to say the least when he saw Ochako dragging Stain by his ankle and a trail of blood from Stain's back God knows how long. Iida told me that you both went somewhere. Mind telling me why you have the hero killer's corpse with you? Oh, and please stop trying to murder Bakugo. We just brought him back from the dead. He's gonna be craving human flesh for a few days. 6. It's kinda a long story, but hey, we don't have to worry about Stain hurting pros anymore. Ochako walked inside happily before turning to Iida. Oh yeah, I think I might be able to heal your brother. If the nerve is just severed and the bone didn't merge to make reconnecting impossible, I can regenerate and restore Ingenium's ability to walk. Iida was shocked when he heard this. Why you mean you can make my brother walk again? Ochako nodded to make the blue-haired boy cry a bit. Thank you. No worries. We're friends. Ochako walked back in and found a plastic spork. Mineta was healed up for the most part by Recovery Girl. She smiled at him with a sadistic look for him to run. Get back here you little pervert. The 3 outside watched as Aizawa glanced down at Izuku. You mind telling your wife to stop trying to kill people? You want to get between her and someone she hates while she has weaponry in her hands? Have a party? 3. Sigh, I don't get paid enough for this. Tiny came out to offer Aizawa some sake for him to chug the thing while they heard the screams of the pervert from inside. 2 weeks had gone by rather fast for the Midoriya couple. Thanks to Nezu's allotment of Ochako going on a work study, she was able to learn of the fieldwork that pros do. She was however limited due to her situation, not to mention even more so with Bakugo's apparent zombification and being cured. Even after having an impromptu appendectomy, dying, coming back from the dead, and insatiable lust for human flesh, he was still a massive prick, but at least that hasn't changed. Izuku on the other hand had learned much from his work study from Gran Torino. The former pro that taught Izuku was also an old mentor of All Might's. He was a bit strange, but seemed to know what he was talking about for the OFA user to gain some good tidbits about how to control his quirk better. Once the work studies were done though, Ochako practically held Izuku all day when they met back, trying to make up for the withdrawal of her physical interaction with her husband. The day now is Sunday with Izuku and Ochako heading to a doctor to get an ultrasound of their baby.
2. Alright Mrs. Midoriya, this gel should help us get a decent look at your baby. My quirk also helps turn vibrations into the actual image, so we should be able to get a decent image of what your baby looks like. I've never seen a woman with a quirk that speeds up the gestation period for developing offspring. However, when I was in med school, the professor delivered a baby that was conceived 9 days prior during the couple's honeymoon, so it's not unheard of.
3. Thank you, doctor. Izuku said this with the specialist holding the ultrasound machine on Ochako's swollen belly. Alright, let's begin with the vibration image first so you two know what you're seeing. The doctor pointed out a blob on the screen for them to see the head as well as where to look if it was a boy or a girl. From what he could see, the baby was undoubtedly a girl before noticing something off. One moment. I'll be using my quirk now. The doctor used his quirk for the image of an actual baby to be on the screen with 7 little fox tails sprouting out from it. Oh my god, she already has her quirk. 5. Yeah. Kinda figured she might. Ochako said this with a bit of pride for the doctor to look at her. The women of our family are born with their quirks. The doctor nearly had a panic attack when I was born since I floated to my mom. 2. Both Izuku and the doctor were somewhat impressed and somewhat uneasy with this information. Well, this isn't the first case of a developing baby possessing a quirk inside the womb, but is the first one I have seen. I was able to take 2 pictures for you both. One of the ultrasound normally. The other of the one with my quirk active. 1. Thank you very much, sir. Izuku took the pictures and helped Ochako off after she cleaned her stomach of the gel used in the act. Be very careful though. From what you told me, she will be due within a month. Make sure she drinks a lot of fluids and gets enough nutrition in her diet for both of them. It would also be a good idea for you to rub her back, breasts and feet. Her feet will be the most painful out of all of them, and the overproduction of milk from her breasts will make them swollen and feel painful. I'll make sure she does, doctor, and I'll do what you said about the massage part. Thank you again for everything. The 2 left the office and began heading back to Ua. As they walked down the street, Ochako started clinging to Izuku with a bit of happiness. I'm so happy, Izuku. We'll be parents soon. Izuku blushed as this was said for him to try and make some sort of sound. All he could do was nod and blush happily, remembering the image of his and Ochako's baby in the ultrasound.
As they passed an alley, the sound of someone running out was heard by Ochako, causing her to turn to the side. When she realized how close the person was, they bumped into Izuku and fell to the ground. Sorry, I didn't watch where I was going. Are you all right? Izuku looked at the person to see it was a white-haired young girl with red eyes. She seemed to be around 4 or 5 at the oldest, with the most notable thing being fox ears and 9 pure snow-white fox tails.
As Izuku tends to the child, who has fallen as well, the hair on Ochako's tail stands on end and her ears prick forwards, alerted by the presence of danger. Subconsciously she snaps her fingers, summoning Tiny, garbed for war.
You should be more careful, Eri. Don't want to cause problems for random people, now do you? A man in a green jacket with dark hair came out of the alley. To the normal person, he didn't seem that off except for 2 things. One was he was wearing surgical gloves, and the second being a plague mask on his face.
14. Sorry about my daughter. She was throwing a tantrum because I wouldn't buy her something and ran off. He's deceiving you. A voice similar to Ochako's own reverberates through Izuku's head. If you hand him over that child, he will betray you the moment you turn your back. He then recognizes the voice as the Kami no Inari herself. Looking down, Izuku saw the girl clinging to him as tightly as she could. Please, don't go. I'm sorry, sir, but it seems she won't let go of me. Izuku made an excuse for him to avoid needing to give Eri directly to the man. Tiny. Ochako telepathically speaks to her servant. He's lying to our faces, those eyes show no remorse and his soul is drenched in the blood of innocence. He so much as looks like he's gonna make a move. Kill him. My apologies. She has a habit of doing that. She has bandages on her arms, and she's emaciated. Tiny and Ochako noticed the bandages with the taller of the two slowly moving his hand to the handle of his sword. Sorry, she's kinda clumsy and gets hurt a lot. The bandages go over a lot of her arms. That's from playing rough. Tiny was waiting for any form of change from the man to indicate reason to attack. She's an exceptionally clumsy girl. Ochako's ears turned sideways with her tail's fur poofing up, readying for whatever would come next. I'm sorry, sir, but I don't feel comfortable giving her to you without the cops stepping in. Izuku picked up the small girl in his arms to walk away. So, it's like that, is I? He's cut off by the singing of a razor-sharp nodashi cutting through bone. Surgically precise, having cut through the seam of the beak and removing overhaul of the top part of his head minus the bottom jaw. I fucking hate Yakuza. Tiny grumbles, wiping the blood from his sword. As this act was finished, Eri tried to move her head to see what was happening, only for Izuku to hold her head down into his chest. You don't need to see this. It isn't pretty. They continued walking away like nothing happened, with Tiny losing his armor to just look like a jacked fox walking down the street with them. Why did you help me? Eri spoke up, looking at Izuku and Tiny, who smiled at her. Because that's what heroes do. 3. Because you are a member of Inari's clan. Because I fucking hate Yakuza. Tiny reiterates, quickly disposing of what was left of the Yakuza boss overhaul. 8. But I'm cursed. Who told you that garbage? No member of the Inari clan has ever been a cursed child. So as long as you are part of our proud lineage, you're the opposite of cursed. Ochako explained while patting Eri's head. The small girl hid her head in Izuku's chest and started sobbing silently inside it. Thank you. You shouldn't listen to evil people. This one's ego was so inflated he lost his head over it. Tiny cracks, trying to bring some levity to the situation. You are a full kitsune, a nine-tail. The living incarnation of Kami no Inari herself. You are a divine being in human form and should be treated as such. 7. Eri didn't know what to say and just simply held onto Izuku tighter. The green-haired boy made sure that he had a good hold so she wouldn't fall while patting her head. It's okay. Why don't we take you somewhere safe? I'm sure you'll prefer that. Eri nodded, wanting to believe anything was better than what she dealt with. Back at Ua, as the four walked inside the dorms, they were stopped by Ashido and Hagakure, who noticed the little girl in Izuku's arms. Ochako. The two looked at their classmate, thinking the baby was hers. You didn't tell us the baby grows so fast. We missed her first words and first time walking. They continued shouting for them to finally realize that Ochako was still pregnant and that the girl looked almost nothing like both Izuku and Ochako. Wait. Who is this kid? Hearing the shouts, Yaoyorozu, Su and Juru came down to see Eri, with her getting a bit overwhelmed. Everyone, remain back. This child has been through a lot and would require us to calm down and let us explain. Tiny addressed the 5 girls. To make a long story short, we kinda saved her from a Yakuza. Well, when I say we, I more mean Tiny, since he was the one that ended the guy. Izuku laughs a bit awkwardly for everyone to be rather amazed and scared of Tiny. I hate Yakuza. Arrogant bastards. Always have been, always will be. The giant fox sat on the couch while bringing out the day's newspaper to look at the state of the country's economy. 7. So, what's with her tails? Juru's right. They look like Ochako's, but with more ribbit. Well, to be honest, she's probably part of the Inari house that was divided some time in the past. A lot of the families that were of Inari descent were excommunicated by either dishonoring the clan or for other reasons. As far as we know, they could still exist for all we can say. Aries' 9 tails here are proof that she is part of House Inari though. But there could be a different reason why this is the case. The small girl started to yawn a bit for Izuku to notice. I'm gonna put Eri to rest on my bed. Tiny. Can you and Ochako make sure she's safe? I need to explain this to Nezu. Of course, young master. Tiny folded over the paper before following Izuku upstairs. There, he opened the door and put Eri under the covers. She immediately wrapped her body around a pillow with her tails in a defensive manner to prevent anyone from harming her. Poor girl. Tiny patted Izuku's shoulder to give a thumbs up for him to leave. He got to the door and turned back to making sure Eri felt safe. Is it just me or is there something spooky about that girl? Momo asks, turning back and facing the others in the class. What do you mean? Mina questions, tilting her head to the side. She looks eerily similar to that painting of the 9-tailed woman in their room. The one we saw when we did the room contest, above the nightstand, she explains. 5. Now that you mention it, the kid does look like a younger version of the woman in that painting. Interesting. Iida says, putting 2 fingers to his chin in thought. There's a good chance Eri is the incarnation of Kami no Inari herself. 9-tailed women in the house of Inari are normally the ones that are said to be her incarnate. Ochako explains for everyone in the room to stop and acknowledge this. That kid is the incarnation of a god, they shouted in unison before being shushed. I'm not sure. Again, I can't tell you exactly since I'm not sure myself. Maybe my parents could help prove this. With Izuku, after getting to Principal Nezu's office, he began explaining the situation to him about Eri and the Yakuza man that they met after. He left out the details about how exactly the man died, but did say Tiny took him out. So this child is possibly a member of Mrs. Ochako Midoriya's family. How intriguing. I'm sorry we picked a fight with the Yakuza, sir. It wasn't our intention to do this. Izuku bowed for forgiveness to gain a chuckle from the small rodent. You may have broken a law or two in a way, but the man Yosari Tiny killed was a rather dangerous member of the Yakuza. Kai Chisaki, the current, former, leader of the Yakuza that is wanted and questioned for several incidents, unsolved homicides and worse, that the police can't understand. If he was doing something that involved this child, I have no doubt in my mind it wasn't playing dress up and having tea parties with her. Nezu began rustling in his desk while Izuku tried to ask about Eri. What should we do about the girl, sir? I know that we should bring her to an orphanage for a foster family, but I don't think that's a good thing to do here. Eri's in a delicate state as far as I can tell, and I'm scared she'll not trust people if we put her in a place like that. Which is precisely why you should bring her on as your daughter. Huh? Nezu placed a small packet of work with 2 sets of everything inside it. Sir, what is this? Considering UA is not a proper spot for a newborn to spend the first few weeks of its life at, I was going to discuss with both you and your wife about leaving the school temporarily so that the baby can be born in a safe place while we make some adjustments for the infant that you will return with. Inside this packet is the work that you both will miss while out and tending to your newborn. Take this time to make sure Eri is accustomed to normal life and have her learn what being a normal child should be. Not to mention that Tiny Fellow can train you better to use One for All, and All Might will be there as well, whenever he has time off. Izuku bowed and left the room. As he walked down the halls, he obtained a call from Ochako. Hello? Hey Izuku. Can you talk to Nezu about us taking a trip to my parents' home soon? I kinda want to find out if Eri's part of my family lineage or not. I was just about to talk to you about that. We'll be moving back with one of our families for a while so that the baby can be in a safe and secure area while the school makes renovations. Squealing was heard on the other side before a reply. I'll call my parents and tell them we'll be coming back for some time. I can't wait to see the shrine again. The call ended for Izuku to laugh a bit. I hope Eri likes the temple. Maybe the foxes will help her find some sense of mental relief. Meanwhile, Eri was sitting silently on the bed looking at all the All Might and Fox-related things in the shared room of Izuku and Ochako. Tiny is merely reading the economics section of his newspaper, not posing any threat to her. Ochako is going through the closet, using her quirk to levitate their clothes and her maternity dresses into a duffel bag for them to go home for the next week or so. To the young girl, she didn't know what to think. They just saved her from that monster known as Overhaul and they were acting so nonchalant about it. She couldn't understand why they were being so kind to her, despite having no idea who she is. Shortly after, Izuku returns from the office holding a stack of papers that Nezu had given him. Eri watches as he and Ochako kiss each other as a greeting before he takes a seat on the bed. "Hey Eri," Izuku says, getting the young girl to turn and look at him. "Do you know what this is?" he asks, showing her the papers. "I can't read," she says quietly, looking at the papers in front of her. Oh. Well. This here says adoption form. You're going to be our daughter," he says, signing his name at the bottom of the page, then writing the kanji for her name in the adoptee slot. He hands the form to Ochako, who signs herself as the mother and then signs Tiny as the godfather should anything happen to them. "You are now our daughter Eri Midoriya," Izuku says, pointing out her name on the page. As Eri looked at the paper, she couldn't fully understand. A single word came to her mind. "Why?" Izuku and Ochako looked at her as she explained. "Why help me? You don't know me." "Eri, come here." Ochako picked the small girl up and placed her on her lap. "Just because we don't know you, doesn't mean we don't want to help." Ochako's right. But we do have two reasons why we would. The first being Ochako's that you may be a member of her family's lineage. As such, it's not right to leave you in the hands of someone we don't know. The second, and this is kinda my reason that is also somewhat Ochako's and Tiny's, I don't think you'll be able to handle being thrown into foster care. From what I can see, you're emotionally unstable as it is and in a very bad state as it is right now. If you'd be unable to trust people and we were able to prevent this, neither one of our consciences could accept that. Eri looked at the three before nodding. "Okay. I want to trust you." They smiled at her before Izuku picked up the bags. "Okay. Nezu allowed us to leave the campus for a little over a month. This should be long enough for Eri to get accustomed to living with us as well as for us to get used to raising our child when she's born," Izuku explained while Ochako and Eri got up. "I already called my mom and dad. They know we're coming, and I also told them about a surprise visitor that we want to look into. I shall head back. If you both need me, do not hesitate to ask for me." Tiny left in a puff of smoke for Eri to look at the two. "Can he disappear like that always? Only when he's trying to look cool." Ochako laughed a bit at her fox companion's antics, with Eri nodding. A few hours later at the Inari temple, as the trio made their trip up to the home of the Urarakas, Izuku eventually found himself holding both Ochako and Eri on his shoulders. "Somebody want to explain to me why I became a pack mule and a steed?" "Because I'm pregnant and can't lift stuff and my feet started to swell. And I got tired." Eri said this a little ashamed of herself for Izuku to sigh in defeat. "Guess I can't blame that logic." The group finally made it to the gate with Tiny standing in front of them. "Hey Tiny. You look worried. Did something happen?" The giant fox looked at the group before saying what happened. "Lady Inari is not in her realm." 7A's silence came between the group before Izuku and Ochako shouted in unison. "What, to be continued?" I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and now we will see you in the next video.